views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Good morning. The latest on that sick out from nurses. The National Security Minister says that U.S. lawyers' corruption claim about the Bahamas was indeed offensive. And we are getting the latest on the National Development Plan. What comes next? It's all straight ahead this morning. I'm Dwight, Strachan, and this is Morning Blend.
It's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. Don't you know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning again, Bahamas. It is Friday, January 30th, 2026. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Again, I'm Dwight Strachan. Also this morning, as we're practically on the eve of Black History Month in the U.S., our history series today is going to be talking about something that's going to make some people uncomfortable, but the history of racism in the Bahamas. We're going to take a closer look at that. Again, our history series with Clifton Heritage Authority. That's all ahead. But first, it's time for the overnight, the latest breaking news from while we're sleeping, and the top national and international headlines this morning. In the overnight, scores of public health nurses staging a sick out regarding overtime pay impacting operations at the nation's two government hospitals as well as various clinics across the country. This was from Wednesday night into yesterday. After days of tension over the outstanding money owed, the Public Hospitals Authority announcing in a statement that financing for the nurses' overtime was approved and is being processed. A little over $2 million is owed to the workers. Operations at Princess Margaret Hospital Accident and Emergency Department and its dialysis unit were the most affected by the nurses' actions. Public health officials were working yesterday to manage schedules and reallocate resources to minimize disruptions, according to the Public Hospitals Authority. They're saying that leadership teams were maintaining safe stalling levels and implementing contingency measures to ensure essential healthcare services remained uninterrupted. National Security Minister Wayne Monroe says that recent comments from an American lawyer who claimed the Bahamas' entire system is infected with drug money and corruption are offensive and inaccurate. Monroe said the statement from attorney Martin Roth, representing Darren Roker, the former Defense Force officer who was sentenced to 4 years in an American prison after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to import cocaine into the U.S., was simply, quote, a lawyer trying to get his client less time. Monroe saying, quote, I guess he was trying to get a lesser sentence for his client by saying, don't blame him, blame the culture he's drawn from. That is inaccurate of the organization he comes from and inaccurate of the country that he comes from. During Roker's sentencing hearing last week, Roth reportedly told the court that the entire system in the Bahamas is filled with corruption. Roth said his client was weak and gave in to the culture. Minister Monroe also saying that the government is seeking an amendment to the Criminal Evidence Witness Anonymity Act to allow for witnesses in anti-gang cases to remain anonymous. He made the comments as he suggested that the lack of protection for witnesses has hampered the effectiveness of anti-gang legislation, which was passed in Parliament nearly 2 years ago. Speaking during the press conference at the Office of the Prime Minister yesterday, that they've asked for the amendment, saying, quote, it doesn't currently provide for witness anonymity in anti-gang matters. That Anti-Gang Act was passed in 2024 and carries stiff penalties for people convicted of involvement in gang activity, including a possible $100,000 fine and a 25-year prison term. Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioner Shannon Knowles said earlier this week that there has been no prosecution under the Anti-Gang Act so far, noting that the law enforcement has encountered a roadblock with the legislation. Prosecutors dropping charges against a man accused of a shooting in Exuma one day after a jury was selected to hear the case. Elton Bain faced charges of attempted murder, possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, and causing damage stemming from the November 14, 2022 incident. On the day in question, Bain allegedly fired shots at Carl Smith and Eric Roll and damaged a 2006 Cadillac Escalade belonging to Corneille Nixon. The prosecutor was expected to make her opening statement to the 9-member jury. Instead, she presented a nolle prosequi to Justice Wilhelmina Archer-Mins, directing the matter be discontinued. The judge told Bain that the prosecution could reinstate the charges in the future. And also from the courts, a man denied repeatedly raping his mentally impaired adult stepdaughter when he took the stand in his defense. The 58-year-old man has been withheld to protect the identity of the alleged victim. Prosecutors allege that he sexually assaulted the then 27-year-old woman between May 2021 and June 2022, and that he forced her to undress after pressing a knife against her neck on one occasion. The man has denied allegations of unlawful sexual intercourse with a person with a mental disorder and assault with a deadly weapon at his trial before Justice Joyanne Ferguson. And the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce rejecting the Davis administration's planned acquisition of the Grand Bahama Power Company, warning that such a move would simply align Grand Bahama's rates with the rest of the country by shifting losses onto taxpayers and risk reducing the island's relatively strong reliability to the national average, which experiences frequent outages. The Chamber said turning the power company into a state-owned enterprise is, quote, not in the long-term best interest of Grand Bahama. The statement was a response to Prime Minister Davis's surprising and vague announcement in Freeport Tuesday that the government has signed a memorandum of understanding with Emira relative to GBPC. Davis claimed the government wanted control of GBPC, and that would result in universal electricity rates across the country, ending a long-standing disparity between Grand Bahama and the rest of the country. Well, the Chamber rejecting the government's justification, saying that the government justifies acquiring GBPC on the basis that electricity rates are higher than elsewhere in the country, but the Chamber questioning that entirely. Overseas, Ukraine waiting for signs today that Russia is abiding by a commitment that U.S. President Donald Trump said it made to temporarily halt attacks on Ukraine's power grid, as Kyiv and other regions are gripped by one of the most bitter winters in years. Trump saying late Thursday that Russian President Vladimir Putin had agreed to his request not to target the Ukrainian capital and other places for 1 week, as the region experiences frigid temperatures that have brought widespread hardship to civilians. Trump saying during a cabinet meeting at the White House, quote, I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kyiv and the cities and towns for a week during this extraordinary cold. Trump saying that Putin had agreed to it. Trump didn't say when the call with Putin took place or when the moratorium would go into effect, and the White House didn't immediately respond to a query seeking clarity about the scope and timing of any limited pause. Israel saying today that it will reopen Gaza's border crossing with Egypt in both directions over the weekend, allowing Palestinians to enter and leave the territory after nearly 2 weeks of closure. The Israeli military body in charge of coordinating aid with Gaza saying in a statement today that limited movement of people only would be allowed. The reopening of the Rafah crossing on Sunday will mark an important step forward for U.S. President Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan. The crossing, Gaza's main gateway to the outside world, has been largely closed since May 2024. Both Israel and Egypt will vet individuals for exit and entry through the crossing, which will be supervised by European Union Border Patrol agents. Palestinians who left Gaza during the war will be allowed to return upon getting Israeli security clearance. Israel has resisted reopening the crossing, but the recovery of the remains of the last hostage in Gaza on Monday cleared the way for the move forward. And Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, signing a law that reopens the nation's oil sector to privatization, reversing a tenet of the self-proclaimed socialist movement that has ruled the country for more than 2 decades. The reform will undoubtedly be her government's signature policy as it positions the oil sector to lure the foreign investment needed to revamp a long-crippled industry. Rodriguez enacting the measure less than a month after the brazen seizure of then-President Nicolas Maduro in a U.S. military attack in Venezuela's capital, Caracas. Rodriguez, facing oil workers and ruling party supporters, signed the bill less than 2 hours after the National Assembly approved it. At the same time, the U.S. Department of Treasury officially began to ease punishing economic sanctions on Venezuelan oil, which were imposed by the first Trump administration, and expanded the ability of U.S. energy companies to operate in the South American nation. Rodriguez on Thursday also spoke with President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who a day earlier explained to U.S. senators in a hearing how the administration is planning to handle the sale of tens of millions of barrels of oil from Venezuela and oversee where the money flows. Venezuela has the largest proven reserves of crude in the world. In sports, the TMT Giants and Caribbean Moonshine Rockets collecting Division I victories over their respective opponents in the New Providence Basketball Association's midweek matchups in the C.I. Gibson Gym. The Giants earning an 83-77 overtime win over the Shockers in the first matchup Wednesday night in the NPBA Division I doubleheader. Meanwhile, the Rockets blew out the Mechadish Millionaires 78-55 for their 6th win of the 2025-2026 season. Read more on that in today's Guardian Sports section. And for Major League Baseball, Bahamian professional player Jazrato Jazz Chisholm Jr. is coming off an historic 2025 season with the New York Yankees. He's now heading into the upcoming season ranked at number 61 in the MLB's top 100 rankings. Chisholm's second-year stint with the Bronx Bombers, nothing short of sensational. He made his return to his natural position at second base and excelled in the role, becoming one of an historic 7 MLB players to produce a 30-30 season. Chisholm entering the coveted 30-30 club, recording 31 homers and 31 stolen bases for the 2025 season. More on that again in today's Guardian Sports section. And from Australia and the Australian Open, In tennis, Carlos Alcaraz overcoming injury to fend off Alexander Zverev in an epic, momentum-swinging five-setter today, becoming the youngest man in the Open era to reach the finals on all 4 Grand Slam events. At 22, he's aiming to be the youngest man to complete a career Grand Slam. He reached his first Australian Open final the hard way, winning 6-4, 7-6-5, 6-7-3, 6-7-4, 7-5 in 5 hours. 27 minutes. It was the longest match of the tournament so far and the longest semifinal ever at the Australian Open, surpassing the 2009 Classic between Rafael Nadal and Fernando Verdosca. That's despite him being 2 points away in the third set from a semifinal victory in a tournament where he hadn't dropped a set through 5 rounds. After medical timeout for treatment on his upper right leg and massages on the same area at 2 changeovers, Alcaraz's footwork wasn't up to his usual elite standard, but he made it through the fifth after dropping serve in the first game, but keeping the pressure up and didn't break back until Zverev was serving for the match in the 10th. He won the last 4 games. The top-ranked Alcaraz will next face either 2-time defending champion Jannik Sinner or 10-time Australian Open winner Novak Djokovic, who is bidding for an unprecedented 25th Grand Slam singles crown. The Marathon Avenue match delayed the start of the night semifinal. That's sports, and that's the overnight. Time for your first look at weather. Your first look at weather brought to you by Star General. As we've been telling you, a lot happening and a lot expected to be happening over the next few days. We've got a gale watch in effect for the entire country. Gale force wind gusts are likely to be experienced beginning Saturday morning in the northern and northwest Bahamas, and then in the late afternoon to early evening in the central Bahamas, and by Saturday night, early Sunday morning for the southeast Bahamas. So again, we've been telling you the Department of Meteorology has issued a special weather statement in response to this developing powerful low-pressure system that's forcing this strong cold front into the area this weekend. So strong gale force winds are expected across all areas beginning at noon Saturday through 6 a.m. Monday. Temperatures are expected to plummet well below seasonal norms, with the wind chill factors dipping into the mid-30s over portions of the northern Bahamas, including Grand Bahama, and the mid-40s in the northwest Bahamas, including New Providence. The public is urged to stay alert for any updates on this. So we've got a surface trough just west of Grand Bahama now, along with a weak area of low pressure deepening in the area near the Great Bahama Bank. And all of this is going to help bring in what we're expecting this weekend. Light to moderate winds and gentle seas will begin increasing and building today, with light to moderate late morning rain and showers throughout the country. So for today, there remains a high risk of dangerous rip currents along Atlantic exposed shorelines in all areas of the waters of the southeast Bahamas. A moderate risk exists for Atlantic waters and the northwest and central Bahamas. Beachgoers should avoid entering water in the southeast Bahamas and exercise caution elsewhere. So your forecast for today, for most of the country, we're looking at cloudy conditions through tonight. About a 10% chance of showers in the northern islands, increasing to 20 to 30% chance by this afternoon. 10 to 20% chance for morning showers in the northwest Bahamas, including New Providence, increasing to 20 to 40% by this afternoon. And a 20 to 40% chance of widely scattered showers for the central and southeast Bahamas. Temperatures today, we are unbelievably looking at highs in the extreme northern Bahamas, Grand Bahama and Abaco, looking at highs of in the upper 70s, mid to upper 50s. Okay, I think we've got this backwards here. So, yeah, that's the minimum. So this is the 70s, that's right. Low 70s for highs in the extreme northern islands, with that's about 19, 20, 21 Celsius. The minimum for the northern islands would be in the mid-50s, around 13, 14 Celsius. And for the Northwest Bahamas, we're looking at high temperatures in the low 70s also. Around 22 Celsius. Overnight lows tonight in the low 60s. 18 Celsius. And for the central Bahamas, look for maximum temperatures in the low to mid 70s. Same for the southeast Bahamas, and overnight lows tonight getting down to the upper 60s, around 19 Celsius. We'll get those temperatures sorted out for you in a bit. But that's your first look at weather. We'll tell you more about this record-breaking weekend coming up in a bit. This weather check brought to you by Star General Insurance Made Simple.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. Don't you know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up.
It's time for a break. But when we come back, we're discussing the day's top stories right here on Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9, your home for fresh news and smart talk all day.
Looking to elevate your gadget game, or a tech trouble simply slowing you down? Escape to a world of innovation at Custom Computers, your go-to store for the latest cutting-edge tech. Whether you need to upgrade your life with the best from Apple and Windows, or your device needs a little TLC, the Custom Computers Know-How Store is the destination for unbeatable expertise and quality repairs. With 2 convenient locations, there's a Custom Computers near you on Patton Street in Palmdale and Cades Village, or call 396-1100.
Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue Street, has those hard-to-find fasteners for you right now. You can find stainless steel regular hex, carriage bolts, galvanized bolts, threaded rods, nails, self-tap screws, sex bolts, anchor bolts, turnbuckles, masonry tools, hand tools, and weed whacker strings. Check out the rope selection and car body fasteners, too. Special orders are welcome. It's your #1 fastener store. Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue and Palm Beach Streets. Call 326-1976.
Step inside the John Baptiste Jazz Club at Baha Mar, where the rhythm of the islands of the Bahamas meets the soul of New Orleans. Every night, the lights dim, the music swells, and the air fills with that unmistakable energy. The kind that makes you close your eyes and just feel. Savor signature cocktails, curated small plates, and live performances from world-class musicians, all in an intimate, artfully designed space where every seat has a story. Whether it's a romantic night out or a spontaneous evening with friends, this is where you want to be. The John Baptiste Jazz Club, only at Baha Mar. Reserve your table now at bahamar.com/jazz club or through the Baha Mar app, because every evening plays its own tune.
City of Miami Gardens presents JITG Music Fest. Janae Aiko, Ludacris, Ashanti, Nelly, Glorilla, LMA, Maya, Joe, D-Nice and Friends, featuring WV, Daniel Jones, Case, Sunshine Anderson, and Kenny Burns, Isley Brothers, El DeBarge, Stephanie Mills, and so many more. March 7th and 8th, Hard Rock Stadium. Tickets and info at jazzinthegardens.com. Jazzinthegardens.com.
In the world of business, technology is not a choice. It's a necessity. And for businesses that demand excellence, there's only one choice for unparalleled support and cutting-edge technology. Custom Computers. You have challenges and we have solutions. Computing, networking, storage, and printing for enterprises large and small, aligned with premium brands like HP, Microsoft, Konica Minolta, and more. Get tech done the right way with Custom Computers. Call the Know-How team at 396-1101.
Every day in a busy world, we have to do so much. Bank with CIBC and get that personal touch. Share your ambitions, let us help your dreams come true. At CIBC, you're at the heart of all we do. We're on your side, we're listening. IBC, ambitions made real.
Love is in the air.
Is your love story one for the ages? Star 106.5 FM wants to celebrate that bond that keeps you going.
Whether it's a look, a laugh, or a lifetime of memories, we want to feel the love.
Enter the Star 106.5 Valentine's Photo and Love Story Contest and win your share of wonderful prizes.
Share a moment that means everything to you and make your Valentine's Day unforgettable.
To enter, upload an original photo of you and your special someone to our Facebook page. In a short caption, tell us what makes your love so special. Tag Star 106.5 FM and use the hashtag Celebrate the Love that never quits.
Go public. Ensure your post privacy is set to public so we can see your entry. Deadline for entry is February 11th.
Don't let your love story go untold. Celebrate the love that never quits.
Love is in the air.
No one likes a fender bender.
Oh, man.
From a little scratch to a full mashup, NUA Insurance has got you covered with auto insurance tailored to fit your needs and budget. For affordable rates with free on-site accident assistance, visit us online or in branch and just ask us. NUA Insurance. Ask us because we've got you covered.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. Don't you know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day.
Welcome back to Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. We are streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas, Channel 969, and BTC Flow, Channel 612. You can tweet us at Morning Blend 969 or Facebook.com/MorningBlend969. Text us on the Guardian Radio text line, powered by BTC, 422-4796 standard. Text rate supply. Once again, I'm Dwight Strachan. Coming up this morning, we are going to get the latest on the National Development Plan. There's a lot happening, and you need to know what's going on with that. And we've got it for you this morning. Later in business, it's our monthly series, our history series with the folks from Clifton Heritage Authority. And today, we are talking about the history of racism in the Bahamas. It is definitely not a comfortable conversation for many, but we need to have it. If you don't know where you've been, you know the saying, you're bound to repeat the mistakes made in the past. So we're going to get into that this morning, and I would love to hear from all of you on that. That's coming up on this final Friday of January 2026. We'll be talking about the weather a lot as well. That's all ahead. Hope everybody had fun at Junior Junkanoo last night. Let's get into what else is in the news. And in the news, we want to thank our caller yesterday, a couple callers who called in to tell us about this, giving us that tip about the nurses and the sick out. It was indeed a sick out and had an impact. PHA says it was a minimal impact, but our Tanika Thompson writing about it in today's NASA Guardian. So scores of public health nurses staged a sick out Wednesday night and yesterday, Thursday, regarding overtime pay impacting operations at the nation's 2 government hospitals, as well as various clinics across the country. After days of tension over the outstanding money owed, the Public Hospitals Authority announcing in a statement that financing for the nurses' overtime was approved and is being processed. A little over $2 million is owed to the workers. Operations at Princess Margaret Hospital's Accident and Emergency Department and its dialysis unit were the most affected by the nurses' actions. So public health officials were working yesterday to manage schedules and reallocate resources to minimize the disruptions. PHA saying in their statement, quote, leadership teams are maintaining safe staffing levels and implementing contingency measures to ensure essential healthcare services remain uninterrupted. Ongoing assessments are being conducted to ensure teams can respond swiftly and effectively to emerging needs while preserving continuity of care. So it said that officials understood that nurses' frustration and were taking steps to rectify the situation, and that financing for the outstanding overtime had been approved and was now being processed. PHA saying, quote, disbursements are being processed, this was the statement yesterday, and discussions will continue in good faith to address outstanding matters. To expedite payments, overtime compensation is being issued through a direct payment system, and this falls outside the standard payroll cycle. Well, just how many nurses called in sick Wednesday night and yesterday is unclear, but their actions stretched across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and various family islands. Bahamas Nurses Union President Muriel Lightburn telling the Nassau Guardian yesterday that nurses were sick and tired of being disrespected. She said, quote, we can see this by action, by the nurses being out sick in large numbers. It can tell you how important nurses are to the healthcare system, and we need to stop taking nurses for granted. They're feeling disrespected. They just feel like they're being dissed. Wow. So we need to make sure that when we do things decently for our nurses, respect them. Lightburn says that nurses have to make financial sacrifices to become trained and often are underpaid for their valuable skills. Okay, let's get your reaction to it. Again, we thank our callers for calling us pretty early yesterday morning to tell us about this. And I'm confirming it when we had very little information about it, but we love our listeners and appreciate your tips. I heard throughout the day on the station people talking about this. Many angry with the action of the nurses, but many in support of this, knowing that if it were them and their money, they too would have to make some interesting moves. So let's hear from you. 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. Call us toll free, 242-300-5720. You can tweet us, you can Facebook us, you can text us, 422-4796. Let's get into it. Caller, good morning. You are live on the air.
Good morning again, Dwight.
Hi, good morning. Hey, thanks for that.
Am I not the lucky one to be the first caller again this morning and to be grateful that those nurses got satisfied? I mean, they're not satisfied, but whatever actions they took yesterday, instead to being processed, and they should be straightened out.
Hey, thank you for the tip yesterday again.
Yeah, because Dwight, just to let it be known. Hello?
Yeah, we're listening.
You know, that I have a personal concern about nurses because the mother of my two beautiful daughters is a 40-year career nurse in Princess Margaret Hospital.
Wow.
She also is a midwife that will deliver babies when the doctors then don't show up and fall down. Mm-hmm. So they need to take care of not only them, take care of those teachers and those civil servants too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since you know a lot more than some people, and you have a lot more information than clearly even officials. Do you have any idea how many nurses were out?
No,
you don't know all that.
I don't know all that.
Okay. But
but they need to take care because Dr. Devil needs to do what they have to do for, and this government have to take care of because it ain't long now, but you just need to do that and register to vote. Do what you have to do as a nation. I'll take care.
Okay, thank you very much again. Wow. Okay. What did he say? That's what he said? Yeah, I thought so. Was that a slip of the tongue, or did he mean to do that? You boy, hey. Ah, boy. The Nurses Union president said the nurses were feeling dissed. I haven't heard dissed in a long time. That's a flashback for the 90s, 2000s. But yeah, don't diss the nurses. Don't diss the nurses. More on this story in the paper today. FNM Chairman Dr. Dwight Sands said the overtime pay dispute and resulting sick out was proof that healthcare workers are being treated with contempt by the Davis administration, saying, quote, they're an afterthought. People are now being forced to juggle their ethical and moral obligations to their patients and their own personal welfare. Wow. Sands, who served as Minister of Health in the Minutes administration, said nurses have told him they can't pay their rent or school fees this month because they were banking on unpaid overtime, stretching as far back as August 2025. Sands saying, quote, so when you have a patient before you that's sick, that's dying, that's bleeding, etc., and you feel morally, professionally, and ethically obligated, but you're not being paid for it, what are you supposed to do? He said the Davis administration can find money to do what it wants to do while workers have to fight to get what they're owed. Well, boy. Again, the money's been found and will start being dispersed. But did it have to come to this? Did it have to come to this? Caller, what say you? Good morning. You're live on the air.
Hey, good morning, Dwight.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, man. It had to come to this, Dwight, because let me tell you why. Right? It's unfortunate that it did. But when we could see politicians would don't really care about the people, because when this administration came in the power, people had to fight for what they entitled of, man. And if you was a caring person, right, or caring people, and critical positions like the nurses and the teachers and the police, and I mean these critical areas, man. So what type of government can allow things can come to this when you're dealing with things as critical as nurses and life, man? So it really shouldn't have come to this. But those nurses, they need to be glad that this is in an election year, because guess what? If it wasn't, they wouldn't have found that lost money, because the money was lost and they found. Right. Have a nice day.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that's accurate to say, but what you believe? My producer's okay. He believes that election year. Well, hey, unions. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But traditionally, there's been a lot of action in election years. It's been quiet so far. Plenty of people must be in it. But yeah, so that happens a lot, and it happens under both governments. All right, so it's not just a PLP thing. I remember in one of our first years. Our first year was an election year. I remember that. You remember that? Were you here, producer? When the Minister of Labor at the time, after a mob gathered outside the studio, and that was an F&M administration. A mob gathered outside the studio because they heard the minister on the air, and they were very angry. And he had to be snuck out the back door for his safety. Don't do those things, people. But I'm just saying that's what happened, and it happens. It's been happening under the FNM and the PLP. So I see a texter trying to suggest that the previous caller made it seem like this happens when this administration is in office. Well, this is the first time this administration has been in office, but you mean a PLP government. That's disingenuous. Yeah, it happens under both. There are challenges under both. There are money issues. There all the time. Yeah, and it will always be like that. There will always be disagreements. Everyone's going to feel they're underpaid, and most people are, especially for the high cost of living in the country. But these will always be with us. The issue is how you deal with it, how quickly you address the issues. And they were complaining about this for a long time and warning about this for a long time. So, caller, let's get to you. Good morning.
Dwight, how you doing?
Doing well.
I'm doing Dwight. I didn't know we had so much in common. Let me say first good morning to my envies. I didn't know we had so much in common. I didn't know that your haters membership actually holds membership also in my Envy Club.
You're speaking in riddles today. I have no idea what you're talking about.
All the people who hate you, they hate us.
Oh, hate me? Me?
Yes, all the people they also have membership in my Envy Club. Those who envy me.
Okay. Wow. Do I have a lot of haters, Alan?
Yeah, actually, you often refer to them as the war room in the COI and the PLP.
Oh no. Oh dear. What have I done? I haven't done
You know
anything. What do I do?
Right?
I don't do anything for people to hate me. What do I?
If you were to cut me
call things the way they are.
If you was to cut me right now, you would think it was New Year in there.
I don't know what that means, but okay. All right.
So if you was to cut me like that, you say I'm in the middle of talking. If you just say hang up on him, there would just be like a celebration.
Oh, I see. Oh, you mean that type of cut? I was not thinking that's what you. See, you're talking about haters. I'm thinking violence, but okay.
No.
Yes,
yeah,
cut the phone. Ah, okay.
Okay. But,
well, that's well.
Yeah. So, but right on this. Let's look at the nursing and health in totality. You have a few hundred nurses and doctors and things that is no longer employed. This shows you a failure. The Minister of Health and the Minister of Labor should resign. Now, here's why. If you withdraw 200 nurses and doctors out of the hospital authority, you would have had to anticipate that those voids had to be filled. If you couldn't get replacement nurses, then you would have to assume that people have to work more hours if these was critical positions that had to be maintained. So the failure of government from the time we was talking with Trump and others who had a problem with the Cuban doctors and nurses, there should have been a strategy should have been developed. And so apparently, the problem could only be money. Remember this? Government had promised the surplus and all those other good things, but it seems like they can't pay any bills across departments and vendors and everything else.
That's why there'll be a surplus, because they don't pay the people. I don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying. But see, the problem is now is that this is why they want to go to election on May 12th. So, because in June they have to bring the budget to the people, and they'll show that the smoke and mirrors.
Well, I have a theory, Alan. I don't know how you feel about this. So I'm thinking the VAT cut, and then this and a few other things. These will be used as excuses why there wasn't a surplus in a few months.
The VAT cut is $15 million anticipated for the last quarter. So that means they have all the money up until April 1st. So so you can't use future events to justify the past.
Well, no, we're supposed to have a surplus come the end of this fiscal year, but obviously that won't happen. And they're going to say, well, in December and January, we did all this, and so now because of that and all this.
But they didn't, that's what I'm saying, the VAT cut doesn't take effect till April.
Yeah, they still won't.
So that's when the losses begin.
Okay. But they still won't make it. That's going to be the excuse. I guarantee.
No, I know it is, but this is what a faking government does.
Yeah,
it makes up excuse and the deflections, whatever else. But we have a health crisis, right? They have not answered the replacement for the doctors and the nurses yet. What is the strategy to accommodate for them? Because even if these nurses and doctors are working overtime, how long can they continue under the duress of that extended time of working overtime every single day, every week, every month, for whatever? So I think it's incumbent upon the Minister of Labor and the Minister of Health to bring us a strategy to compensate for what has been happening, because health is one of the major issues in the country.
Okay.
And so they have been quietly hoping that we don't notice that this is what is happening. So it's like almost like essentially the Titanic is the SSPLP is sinking, and the Prime Minister is telling them, play the music very loud and bring whatever distraction you have, and maybe the people will keep dancing. And so the problem is that this leadership is failing us on all accord, and health is one of the major things. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Callers, we'll get back to you in just a second. I just want to read this text. This person says, I blame those nurses on two bases. I don't know if any practice in the Bahamas that allows workers to take overtime without manager's approval. And also, how dare they take a sick out when you have patients' life at risk, especially those dialysis patients. How can you expect to pay your bills from expected overtime? That's not sound financial management. Bills should be paid from your expected base salary, not overtime. Am I right? All right, so again, this is text. I said I was going to get to you in a second. Oh, wow. People aren't. I don't think you're looking at this in the right way, right? You're staying over 2 hours at work will hardly count as an emergency. Maybe you got a big project, a deadline coming, but it's not like a life-threatening emergency. So I don't know if it's fair for you to say that. Now, as we talked about earlier in the week, if there are nurses working overtime, like picking up another shift and doing paperwork, yeah, you should get approval for that, absolutely. But if you stayed an hour or two to help stabilize a patient, that's a different story. And you don't have time to get the approval for that. We don't know what they mean when they say overtime, and that'll be good to get some clarification on that. But it's not like you working in the office. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for sending Miss That's Miss Thompson, the reporter you all sent to check on that story yesterday.
We had a couple reporters checking on it.
Yeah, well,
I got your message. I'll give you a call after the show.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you to Dwight. And Dwight, I don't want to say thank you also to the Prime Minister and the government for planning or going ahead to build us a new hospital, a specialty hospital. But I also want to say, at least I believe, like, maybe the Prime Minister stepped in yesterday to solve that problem. I don't know if the problem's solved, but I think the nicest might be back to work. So whatsoever he did, I appreciate it on behalf of especially the patients and the nurses and the doctors who have to work in them condition. But I want to beg the Prime Minister, we begging you, Mr. Prime Minister, like how you gone to Freeport, right, and you might have solved that problem yesterday. You is the Minister of Finance. Sometimes it's sad to know that everything boils down to money. But you're the man to do it, sir. And not just because the election coming and maybe you might get some votes for it, but I want you to pay attention to the hospital a little bit more. It might be too late to move your Minister of Health, right? We believe like he's a failure in many, many different ways, right? But if you could, Prime Minister, the cafeteria, I don't think they start cooking in there yet. I think we still getting the food from the University of the Bahamas. Mr. Prime Minister, please, man, I want you to treat it like your home, like your own personal business. Please step in there, do a walkabout. If you want to bring the whole cabinet in there, you could bring the cabinet in there. And everything ain't going to solve in one day. Stay there, stick there, come back another day and make sure the people doing what they're supposed to do. Make sure the air conditioners working in the operating room where the baby's still born and stuff. That we ain't got to put off no surgery or nothing like that, Mr. Prime Minister. Please, sir, please get inside there. Make sure the nurses them getting treated the right way, how they need to get treated. Please get in there. The morgue, I understand the dead people. We contract a private company to keep the dead people. They're getting worse and worse, Mr. Prime Minister. Sad that it's boiled down to money, but getting there, Mr. Prime Minister. This is a PLP talking. Let's help the country, Mr. Prime Minister, because you're a caring man. Please get in the hospital and let's fix the morgue and make sure they're doing the food back down there and don't have to transfer it from the University of the Bahamas. That's a disgrace and a shame. Keep up the good work, Dwight.
Okay. All right. Wow. That's a very passionate plea there to the Prime Minister. Okay. All right. This texter says here, hey, that previous caller is incorrect. Midwives don't deliver babies when the doctors don't show up. They are trained to be the first ones to attempt delivery. The doctors show up if there's a problem. Please don't disparage our doctors in an effort to praise the dedication of hardworking nurses. Okay, everybody heard that? Can't pay workers but $100 million to fix a bridge. You know, I need you all to be very, very sensible when you send these text messages. I mean, so if a bridge needs to be fixed, my God, you got to fix the bridge, though, right? Though, because you'll need a whole lot more nurses if that bridge does something that you don't want it to do. Make some better examples or statements. You need the money for all of those things. What do you think? Bridges there just for like decoration? What? Anyway, Dwight, let me get this straight. They somehow found the money. Was it hidden? That means that they had the funds. They just chose not to pay these workers. Well, no, obviously they will have to redirect money. Somebody else may start saying they didn't get paid. Or some bridge might not get fixed. Who knows? But, you all are very, very suspicious. But, you know, these things happen in environments where cabinet ministers tell you freedom of information is not a priority. People get suspicious. They start saying crazy things. And yeah, so I understand. I understand entirely. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning, Cousin Dwight. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good morning, nation. I am happy in a sense that, because, you know, GNN has been sounding the alarm now for several years on Guardian Radio with reference to the various ailments of the hospital. But the problem is too much politics, that the technocrats at the hospital, I don't know where there is their compassion for human life, human concerns, because they have basically relegated humans to the third tier of concerns when it comes to the healthcare system, and it's really, really, really bad. That hospital has been condemned from the late 80s, Dwight, from the late 80s, early 90s. It was condemned by the engineers. And someone asked the question why they can't get the kitchen going back. It's because two and a half years ago, some of the kitchen staff came to GNN and they said, GNN, we know you can write on our behalf. I did it. And when they got in the kitchen, they found out exactly what GNN is saying. It's condemned. When you move that first block and you look behind that, some other stuff going. That's why it can't get fixed proper. And only one thing Papa was really good this morning, but only one thing I fault Papa for, and he needs to stop it. Him and the like. You're not a PLP, Papa. You're a Bahamian. You're a Bahamian.
Both can be true.
Parties last.
Oh,
Pardon me?
Both can be true, but sure, yes, I hear you saying.
Yeah, I need him to be a Bahamian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Bahamian. You understand? We need the help. So what else can GNN say? You know? What else?
Well, I mean, sadly, around here you've got to apparently, or you have haters apparently. You got to say these things so when you do offer criticism or critique, they won't come at you with the guns blazing, right? So you got to say, well, I'm a PLP, so please just let me tell you, the place is crashing.
Right? It like you said, it doesn't affect the right now the paupers, the CLNs, the 52s and stuff, but it affects GNN on a day-to-day basis and hundreds of others, right? But you said it like just now. I'm a fearless person. I'm not afraid of no man.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do things like what I do and sound in the alarms. But the flip side of that is, Dwight, they have made several attempts on my life. Several attempts on my life in doing so. And it's really sad because these are supposed to be people that are supposed to care. The profession they are in is caring.
Okay, so that's a serious statement. That's a serious statement. I mean,
it's me. This ain't Dwight. This ain't Papa. This ain't 52. This GNN. And I reported it. Dr. MacGyver knows. Dr. Davil knows. All of them knows. Ms. Robinette Roll knows via letters. These black and white that I put down, But they just sweep everything under the rug. And that it's really sad. Thanks for taking GNN call, Dwight.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's take some more calls. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Dwight.
Hi.
I only say it's a PLP because I want the Prime Minister, to know that it's a PLP. They see an F and I'm trying to be political or nothing like that.
We get it.
And I take that criticism. I am a nationalist first, Bahamian first, and PLP afterward.
Yeah.
Dwight, I don't know if you could touch it soon, right? But that's what Wayne Monroe say. I don't know who he was talking to. You hear what Wayne Monroe say?
We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. We can get to that, yeah.
Okay.
So stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, let's take another call. Let's get some new calls in today. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Stewart.
Hi, good morning.
You're solo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to be importunate. Mr. Strawn, my schoolmate, my good friend GNN, and I always appreciate his sincerity. But, GNN, I've been on the ward a few times after surgery. I didn't get my reward, but, like, to be honest with you, right, in the human stories, right, you just can read the Guardian and go to the archives and see that in the healthcare system, right, there are the nurses and the doctors. I applaud them because I've seen the belligerent behavior of some patients and the arrogance that they display towards them. So some of them have mastered the art of indifference. However, there are a few who have become desensitized to human suffering. I've seen it over and over. So what I'm saying is, I almost died on a ward before simply because I was having blood clots in the catheter, and the nurse told me to take 2 pills and go sleep. This was on the night shift, okay? So she was in charge of the ward. She would come and turn up the TV and carol like Adolf Hitler, et cetera. She was one of the head nurses, et cetera. But what I'm saying is, they can be spiteful, but you don't really get that type of behavior from the Nigerian and the Filipino nurses, whether male or female. So what they had to do was unblock the catheter with a syringe. I would have a catheter up my urethra for post prostate surgery. So you have blood clots, which is natural. Blood clots occur naturally. So if you are saying that you have a blood clot and the blood is not flowing in the bag, what that means is that your bladder would fill and you will end up having kidney problems and your bladder could burst. Oh, God bless no man curse. Thank God it didn't end up worse. What I'm saying is my human experience counts. So I agree with GNN in humanizing these stories, but all of us have suffered. And so what happens is a good thing I had a cell phone on me to call Dr. Robbie Roberts. And then they sent a doctor who was an intern. I don't know, she was maybe a trainee. She couldn't even get the catheter in down my penis. So what I'm saying is, and then Dr. Moss came and did it, right? So what I'm saying is, sometimes you have the strictures, and it's always an impediment. There's always something going on with the human body. It's not always like an in and out all of the time, Mr. Strong. So the human stories do count. But what I'm saying is, it's not the nurses' fault, that they have become desensitized to human suffering. People have died on the side of me, in front of me. What it is actually the poor pay and the lack of morale. And so there are nurses that care very much, and I can call their names, and I appreciate them very much. But what I'm saying is, they can be spiteful, some of them, and that's just the way it is, Mr. Strong. And we have to listen to one another. Give thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get to the text line. This person says here, Dr. Sands should be the last one talking. When he had power, the nurses and doctors had to march under them while the Prime Minister was leader. So I don't want to hear from none of them who had power before, because the nurses still have to fight under the FNM as well. At least this government is breaking, I guess. It's saying Sands should be the last one talking. Okay, yeah. Okay, this person says here, during the day shift yesterday, I was told by an employee who works at PMH that there were 2 nurses on the private ward too. What's the normal? How many do they normally have? Okay. The smart nurses are leaving this folly of a country for the better. Let's text. This person says here, I want to read this text. I can't read this text. They're also calling the person the same name as the first caller, but can't be all your. They're mad that C. Allen's allowed to plug his part. We're going to soon start charging C. Allen for commercials, because I don't know what that's. And back charge him, right? Oh, boy. Yeah. Ask any nurse. They're supposed to help the doctors deliver, but the doctor never shows up, so midwives end up delivering the babies. It's the truth. Oh, boy. We're going to start a war now between the doctors and the midwives. Let's not do that. Let's not do that, everybody. We know both of you. We love you all, and you're very important, midwives and doctors. Okay. Popper really disappointed me just now. It's a shame that in 2026 we are begging grown men we literally pay to provide the funding to keep the nation going. Why are you disappointed in him? Be disappointed in the people who aren't doing what you pay them to do. How about that? And to add insult to injury, to continue to brag about being a PLP, this is beyond sides, because it shows that hardcore supporters, but again, he was making a point, right? Because they're going to say this is how the country is now. Anybody who criticizes them is an enemy, and he's trying to show that he's not. He's not. That was a point. Don't miss the point. Don't miss the point of what he was doing. This person says that hospital's been around since the 1800s. Well, how is it people feel that things are not supposed to be deteriorating? Don't make this argument. That's not a good argument. Anyway, we need a new hospital, plain and simple. Everyone wants money and doesn't care for the patient. Stop it. Check the irresponsible death by negligence. Oops. Okay. Anyway, boy. Dwight, this text says, Popper is not a PLP. Tell him to stop calling your station and speaking untruths. Okay, Popper, you heard that. I guess you've been kicked out of the party now since you call and make too much sense. So, oh well. This text says here, I don't think that premise was about the bridge being fixed as much as the exorbitant price tag. We all know it's grossly overpriced. I don't know any such thing. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if the texter's an engineer. Do we know how much it costs to fix a bridge? How badly damaged is the bridge? I have no idea. It might be. I'd say over-engineer it. And if you can overfix it if cars and things are supposed to be going over it. But I hear you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight.
Good morning.
Yeah, how you doing?
Doing well.
All right. Papa, something else I want you to add to the list, man. Add Clifton Heritage to the list. Dwight, you saw the video with Clifton? With the Wakers complaining? Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, because I see it on a different station. Yeah, on a different station. Man, the Wakers complaining. You need to go get that video and see it, man.
Yikes. Well,
did you believe this just happened under the PLP? This just happened. You see the conditions with these governments is want you to wake in 2025, 26?
They're scheduled to be our guest today.
It's an electrical asset, no.
Oh, dear.
But your boy who's come on the station, he in charge of Clifton, right? Davis, Christopher Davis gentleman.
He's got a prominent role there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, if your daddy is the prime minister and the minister of finance and you can't fix up that place around there and you're asking for tourists to come around there?
Oh, boy.
Man, it's a disgrace, man. I hope the international community didn't see that video, man.
Okay.
The Wakers ain't got nowhere to sit down to eat. The electrical box, the wood rotten, all the roof leaking. You see how the nice them had to go through in the hospital and things that it's this administration, man. If you all keep with PLP and effort, then you all deserve to get what you all getting, man. Have a good day.
Wow. All right, so this is the kamikaze flyers are out today. Everyone's dropping bombs. Well, they're going to be here today, so I guess we'll ask about that. But wow. I didn't see the video, so we'll see if I can find out what that's about. Well, there you go. That might be a sign. Like, even if still challenges all around, no matter what. So, doesn't matter who you are. These are challenging times. That might be encouraging. I don't know. It depends on how you spin that one. Wow. All right. Yeah, let's go to break. Let's go to the news. It's a good time for a break. We'll get to what Wayman Rohit has said after the news. Got a lot more to talk about on this Friday morning. Final Friday. This is the... Boy. Right here on Guardian Radio 96.9. Stay with us.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down, like a bridge over troubled water. Wake up.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. We are streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas, Channel 969, and BTC Flow, Channel 612. You can tweet us at MorningBlend969 or Facebook.com/MorningBlend969. Text us 422-4796. Standard text rate supply. And now at 8:22, it is time for another check of your weather for today, brought to you by Sherwin-Williams. Of course, you have a lot going on and a lot expected to be happening over the next few days, so take a listen very carefully, folks. We've got a gale watch in effect for the entire country. Gale force wind gusts are likely beginning Saturday morning in the northern and northwest Bahamas, and by late afternoon to early evening in the central Bahamas, and by Saturday night into early Sunday morning for the southeast Bahamas. The Department of Meteorology has issued a special weather statement in response to this developing, powerful low-pressure system that's forcing a strong cold front into the area this weekend. Strong gale force winds are anticipated across all areas beginning at noon Saturday through 6 a.m. Monday, and temperatures are expected to plummet well below seasonal norms, with wind chill factors dipping into the mid-30s over portions of the northern Bahamas, including Grand Bahama and Abaco, and the mid-40s in the northwest Bahamas, including New Providence. So, what's happening? We've got a surface trough just west of Grand Bahama now, along with a weak area of low pressure deepening in the Great Bahama Bank. All of this is going to be the catalyst for what we're expecting for this weekend. Light to moderate winds and gentle seas will begin increasing and building today, with light to moderate late morning rain and showers throughout the country. By Saturday, tomorrow, that powerful, dangerous cold front is forecast to arrive for the northern islands, bringing damaging winds, rough seas, and a significant drop in temperatures over the weekend. Winds will gradually abate, but will remain locally brisk by Sunday evening, with lower than usual temperatures persisting into midweek next week before rebounding by Thursday. Boaters should monitor the forecast state of the seas beyond Sunday. In the meantime, we've got a high risk of dangerous rip currents along all Atlantic exposed shorelines and all area waters of the southeast Bahamas, and a moderate risk is for Atlantic waters of the northwest and central Bahamas. Beachgoers and swimmers should avoid entering the water in the southeast Bahamas and exercise caution when swimming elsewhere. So the forecast for today, the whole country looking at cloudy conditions through tonight. A 10% chance of showers this morning for the extreme northern islands, but increasing to 20 to 30% chance by this afternoon. 10 to 20% chance for the rest of the northwest Bahamas, including New Providence, in the morning, but increasing to 20 to 40% chance by this afternoon. And for the central and southeast Bahamas, a 20 to 40% chance of widely scattered showers. Temperatures today, we're looking at highs in the low 70s for the northern half of the country, around 21, 22 Celsius, and highs in the mid 70s for the central and southeast Bahamas, around 74, 75 Fahrenheit, 24 Celsius. Overnight lows tonight for the extreme northern Bahamas getting into the mid-50s, or around 13, 14 Celsius, and the upper 50s or low 60s for the rest of the northwest Bahamas, including New Providence, and the low to mid-60s for the central islands, around 19 Celsius, and the mid to upper 60s for the southeast Bahamas, around 20, 21 Celsius. That's today. Tomorrow, the changes begin to arrive. So, partly cloudy with a few breaks for the northern half of the country. Partly sunny to sunny during the day, turning mostly fair at night. By tomorrow for the central and southeast Bahamas, a 20 to 40% chance of showers in the morning, decreasing to 10 to 20% by the afternoon. But the gale force winds are going to be what we're contending with throughout the day for most of the country. And you need to keep that in mind. While things may start off warm, that will greatly change towards the evening hours and into Sunday, when you will see a mix of sun and clouds, but high temperatures in the low 70s and even lower for the extreme northern islands. And that will continue, as we said, throughout the weekend. We'll keep you updated throughout the day here on Morning on Guardian Radio, but that is your weather check, brought to you by Sherwin-Williams. If you're looking to paint, Sherwin-Williams has what you're looking for. And more. Visit Sherwin-Williams, Bahamas. And it's time for traffic, brought to you by RBC. With RBC, your ideas happen here. In your real-time traffic, a number of hotspots to tell you about. We've got Milo Butler Highway, as usual. Heavy traffic for you from just around the Fire Trail roundabout straight up to Tonic Williams Darling Highway. Slow-moving traffic on the Fire Trail side as well. And we're going to be seeing some slow-moving traffic on the Tonic Williams Darling Highway side, westbound towards that roundabout. Then we've got Milo Butler, we've got Blue Hill Road, slow-moving traffic as usual from St. Vincent all the way through to Independence Drive, especially near Carmichael, and that's mainly northbound. And Independence Drive seeing some slow-moving eastbound traffic this morning. Pockets along Soldier Road, you're going to be seeing slow-moving heavy traffic, like the East Street intersection, Windsor Place. And once you get to Prince Charles Robinson Road, that area very busy for you, especially on the Robinson Road side, westbound straight up to Marathon. Marathon seeing slow-moving northbound traffic at this hour as well. And Eastern Road from just east of Fox Hill to about Johnson Road. If you're heading westbound, you see that heavy traffic there. That's your real-time traffic and your Morning Blend Traffic Alert, brought to you by NUA Insurance Agents and Brokers. Get a quote however it suits you. Stop by your nearest branch or get an instant motor quote online at nuainsurance.com. Quick questions or big decisions, they've got you covered.
Marco's Pizza has the perfect everyday deal. Pick up a large one-topping pizza for only $10 every single day. This has to be the best pizza deal in town. No gimmicks, just great pizza at a great price every day. Fresh, fast, and full of flavor. That's the magic of Marco's. Only at Marco's participating locations.
At CFAL, we understand that a secure future is the greatest gift you can give your employees. That's why our tailor-made group pension solutions are designed to fit the needs of both large and small companies. With CFAL, you can provide the retirement you and your employees deserve, ensuring peace of mind and financial stability for years to come. Join the many businesses that have already entrusted CFAL to create the right pension plan for their employees, and let us help you build a brighter future for your team. Visit us at cfal.com to get started on building wealth so you can live well. CFAL, growing wealth for future generations.
Every day in a busy world, we have to do so much. Bank with CIBC and get that personal touch. Share your ambitions, let us help your dreams come true. At CIBC, you're at the heart of all we do. We're on your side, we're listening, we know the way you feel. CIBC, ambitions made real.
Get ready for the biggest football game of the year, Super Bowl 60. We have the best seat in the house for you. Join Star 106.5 All-Star Team live at Anthony's on Paradise Island on Super Bowl Sunday, February 8th from 2 to 6 p.m. Enjoy giant screens, delicious fun food, ice-cold Collect Bear specials, prizes and surprises non-stop. It's the place to be for Super Bowl Sunday. Anthony's on Paradise Island. Watch the Patriots take on the Seahawks.
Touchdown, Seahawks!
The Star 106.5 All-Star Team will be there to cheer you on from 2 to 6 p.m. It's the biggest Sunday of the year for the biggest game of the year, Super Bowl 60, live at Anthony's on Paradise Island. Don't miss it.
Here's a sure-winning art store moment from Shelley and Dee Dee.
We're the only full art store in the Bahamas. If we don't have it, we make a list, and trust me, our boss can get that. If you need that, he can get that. You can find sketchbooks, acrylics, the canvases in all sizes, stencils. We have the Angelus that they use on shoes and letters. We're the only persons in Nassau that carries the Montana spray. We have the Krylon sprays, watercolor in paints, the oil, chalk paints, the alcohol paint, metallic paints, a little Floetrol, and we have cleaning products for the artists, thinning products for the artists, and Crayola colors, and glitters, pencils, the Posca markers, and pastels, oil, and the acrylic pastels, dyes. Oh yeah, we also have airbrush paint. I didn't forget that part of the movie. Gift sets, hobby craft,
Oil shrimp,
clays.
stew shrimp, shrimp gumbo. But art supplies. We have a lot of them. Sherwin-Williams Art Store. Find colour in every day.
Get up, put on your street dancing shoes. Get up, put on your bright, happy smile, baby. Get up, come on, let's dance, drink, and shout. Go make some first step again in Nassau town. Go make some first step again.
We are back with Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strong with you on this Friday morning, final Friday of January. We're going to get a closer look at the weather conditions for the weekend a little bit later in the show. The wind chill is going to be a big factor, and that's going to plummet into the 30s and 40s for parts of the northern and northwest Bahamas. We'll get to that a little later, as we said. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about the National Development Plan, where things stand at this point. You don't want to miss that. And our history series with Clifton Heritage Authority coming up a little bit later in the show. So a lot to get to on this Friday morning. We want to wrap up our discussion of what's in the news. We promised this, we'd get to this, what National Security Minister Wayne Monroe said about the a couple of things yesterday. The press conference, the Office of the Prime Minister press conference yesterday, talking about the anti-gang legislation and about corruption and what's been said about corruption in the Bahamas of late. Take a listen to this report from our Vani Katut.
National Security Minister Wayne Monroe says Bahamians should be an American lawyer who said Bahamian law enforcement and government officials are corrupt.
Another fellow say, all of y'all, all of us corrupt, not just the police. So anyone who wants to stand with him must put their hand up and say, I admit I'm corrupt. Because he didn't cast his persons just over an organization, over a country. And so any Bahamian who will wish to support somebody who's accusing you of being corrupt because of something one man does, then you clearly must be corrupt if you're accepting that description. It is right and just for you to be offended by an American who must know that their police officers, federal agents, are put before the courts when they do wrong, to seek to use that to label everybody in a country. Why would you not be offended by that?
Martin Roth, who was the attorney of former Royal Bahamas Defense Force officer Darren Roca, told a U.S. district judge that the entire system in the Bahamas is corrupted. Roca, who was accused of playing a major role in a conspiracy to import tons of cocaine into the United States, was recently sentenced to 48 months in prison. Monroe asserted that Roth simply was trying to get his client a lesser sentence.
The same prosecution indicted a former DEA agent with criminally facilitating trafficking. And so across every organization, you may find a bad apple. Bahamians just need to Google DEA agent, charged, convicted, and you will see that it is a matter that happens. I think the commissioner, the prime minister, everyone puts it correctly. One bad apple does not taint an entire organization. I like to say that the test is what happens when you find that bad apple. Do you cover it up or do you address it?
Roker, along with 10 Bahamians, including a senior police officer and 2 Colombians, were indicted in a New York court in 2024 and charged with conspiracy to import cocaine into the U.S., possession and use of firearms, and firearms conspiracy. The National Security Minister says the record will show that officers have been placed before the courts for alleged wrongdoing.
In fact, that is why you have this thing about police officers going before the court. Defense force, well, a police officer was recently convicted in a case brought by the police. Defense force officers and Marines going before the court. Prison officers going before the court. That shows and demonstrates that when they are found wanting, it is not covered up. The public should be concerned if you were seeing nobody go before the court, because that may be an indication of a cover-up. And so the same thing that people say causes alarm, that the police put police officers before the court, They put Defense Force Marines and officers before the courts, correctional officers before the courts. You may think that, look at what these fellas are doing. Well, I would ask you to say, look at what the police are doing, who are putting them before the court.
Meanwhile, the National Security Minister says none of the cases being investigated under the Anti-Gang Act have made it to court yet because the Criminal Evidence Witness Anonymity Act needs to be amended. He told reporters today he has renewed his call for the change to be made, which would provide for witness anonymity in certain matters.
It doesn't currently provide for witness anonymity in anti-gang matters. And the thinking is very simple. When you think of organized crime, the witnesses may be persons who have seen the light and decided to turn over a no leave, not participate anymore, or to help take down the gang. The participants may be agents, as everyone who watches TV sees.
2 cases are currently being investigated under the Anti-Gang Act, which came into effect in 2024. The act carries stiff penalties for people convicted of involvement in gang activity, including a possible $100,000 fine and a 25-year prison term.
The moment that you file a complaint and you list your witnesses, they will become known. If they are civilians, they may well become targets. If they are law enforcement officials undercover, their usefulness will then cease once it is. And what has happened in the murder cases, for instance, with witness anonymity, you are able to redact statements to protect the identity of the witness up to a point.
The legislation was introduced as a part of the Davis administration's attempts to dismantle the gangs that politicians and police say are wreaking havoc on the streets of New Providence.
Our Vonnie Toot with that comprehensive report there. Thanks a lot. All right, so let's get to, we only have a couple minutes to get to your responses to this, but let's hear from you. 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. You can tweet us, you can Facebook us, you can text us, 422-4796. All right, so from me, guys, it's a split decision on Monroe's comments there. So I think, especially with the corruption issue, he's saying that, look and see, people are being brought before the courts. They are addressing it when they find these bad apples. And that's good. I would have liked to have heard the Commissioner of Police say that too. But the first part of that was grade A gaslighting, right? To mention the DEA, I mean, what does that got to do with anything here? And to mention that it's just the defense lawyer who was saying this, that is absolutely false. And he didn't say it was everybody. He said the system. And we know, yes, the people make up the system, but not everybody in it is going to be sharing the views and the standards of the system. So no, let's not do that. And again, it wasn't just the defense lawyer. The indictment says it too. This is not the defense lawyer saying this. This is right in the National Guardian. You can read it. The indictment says the drug trafficking takes place under the corrupt protection of Bahamian government officials, including high-ranking members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, who facilitate the receipt, protection, and safe passage of illicit cocaine shipments through the airports and ports of the Bahamas in exchange for bribe payments. That's the indictment. So it's not just one lawyer. That's the whole United States saying that. Is that, yeah? So let's stop that. Stop that. And if anything, it means the top. Not all the people, but the people in the top, the people with power who can make things happen. So let's stop putting our heads in the sand or spinning this ridiculous narrative. Not everybody in the country is corrupt. We know that. But it's too many people in the country are corrupt. That's the problem, right? So stop playing around and get serious. I like what you said. We are, as you can see, every week, because every week there's been somebody charged for real, which is also crazy. But thank God it's happening. And hopefully we'll see more of that. But let's not act like this was one man trying to denigrate the Bahamas. It wasn't. And you will hear more and more shocking things coming when the other Bahamians face trial in a few weeks. So come on. Come on. But anyway, let's hear from you quickly. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Strachan.
Hi, good morning.
How you doing today?
Doing well.
Listen, this isn't the first time, okay, that this has been brought up about our country. In the late 70s, early 80s, this same government, right? I remember when you could walk out on Montague.
I don't think it's fair to say the same government, but okay.
Anyhow,
the government of the Bahamas at the time, whatever.
I understand. The government at the time, okay? I remember when Bahamas Air flights used to go to Atlanta with cocaine on it. Okay, and when we had to, when we had to, I'm telling you the truth, when we had to we had to go to Fort Lauderdale first. Okay, and they used to put the dogs on the plane to sniff our bags and sniff us. So this isn't the first time that we've been through this. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, yeah, sure. But I don't know what the point was there. But we've been telling people and ourselves that we've moved on from those days. We used to do a lot of horrible things here, wrecking and bootlegging and all manner of things. So what does that mean? That means that's why things are the way they are? Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight Strachan.
Hi. Calling all the names. This is serious. What bombs do you have for us today?
Seeing that you're solo.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
But I do appreciate the work you do. And when you begin charging to call, I think that might be a source of income for the station, if you consider it, because people might want to pay to talk a little longer,
Oh, boy, well, then they'll get rid of us. They'll just have people call in to talk.
No, let's give you 2 minutes to develop a thought. That's where we could sit down and prepare what we want to say and make it more concrete and concise.
But how would we vet it? I mean, because some crazy stuff's going to be...
Time. You do a good job.
Oh, boy.
Or, Dwight, we could submit it to you first.
Well,
right?
Pre-recorded.
Yeah, and you tell us the topic that you can be talking about. No, not pre-recorded. You just tell us the topic.
Because you might go off the script, like like a political leader, and then you add in something there that will get everybody sued.
No. Well, let me just stick with the thought I wanted to develop because I could go down the road with the drugs on Bahamas airplane because I know.
No, please don't. Please don't.
I won't do that.
Oh my God.
But what I'm concerned about is the Minister for National Security. When they're drafting these bills, don't they sit down and discuss the pros and the cons? If I have someone who may need to be protected, how are we going to make it easy so that person's identity is not known? Was it deliberately done to leave that aspect out so that this could be a lagging presentation so the Bahamian people could just drag it out? Because it seems to me it was a deliberate thing that he did, or they did, to not include that protection feature.
I mean, we can't say. I don't know. It's interesting, but maybe in their haste to get the legislation passed, maybe they overlooked some things. We were apparently being told that every single murder in the country was gang-related, and we know better now. But perhaps that was it. They were in a rush to get something done.
We have lawyers who are running the country who know exactly what is necessary. They know. You see, I could understand if I drafted the bill, I might overlook that. But these gentlemen are trained legal minds that know that this is a feature that has to be included in the bill. Now they have to amend it, and then when they amend it, it's going to be something else that they have to amend. It's just dragging the Bahamian people along.
Boy, it is curious. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Wow. It could just be error. Could just be that too. But who knows? We got time for one more call. Let's squeeze it in. Good morning, call. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight.
Hi. Good morning.
Hey, Dwight.
You sound like you're on speaker. There we go. If the first part definitely was.
The first part of the statement, I agree with you. We agree with you. Dwight, so you did promise us that you would either do something that play it every now and again, or you could either read it.
That was it. I just read it again. I'll read it one more time.
I know.
Yeah. You want me to read it again?
I thought you was going to read it.
I mean, one more time today. But I'll pre-record it, and we'll play it just a reminder of Bahamians.
Yeah, that's what you did promise us.
Yeah.
But you know something? I think we need international help. We don't trust the police to investigate this stuff, and we do need an investigation. You understand? So I feel like there's a lot of good officers there who want to talk, who want to, help to clean up the Royal Bahamas. And this ain't just the police force, this is the armed forces. So I think we need external help to come inside here, to work with us, to help us. So that's what Wayne Monroe running on with. I expect him to be telling us, like, educated, because he's a smart lawyer. He's the when all the cases stem, like from when he sued the government and stuff. Tell us how to sue that man if that man lie on us or whatever. What is the next step? When somebody says something, they supposed to produce evidence, and they saying that's a behemoth over there producing evidence. We need external, not internal, external forces to come inside here and to do a audit or something, man, to do a formal investigation, because the police can't investigate this, and they keep coming on the radio just telling us like we stupid, but defend this and defend that. We must raise our hand if we agree with this because we corrupt. So Dwight, you corrupt because you agree that we need investigation and we need help? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, interesting stuff. All right, let's read some messages as we get ready to go to a break. This person says here, Monroe, I can't read that first part there, but wow. But his attempts to gaslight a whole country is laughable. The man said the whole system is corrupt, not every Bahamian. Who does Monroe think he's talking to? Laughable, I tell you. Wow. This person says here, when I think about him, I think about the organized criminals, the one or two bad apples on the police force. We need international help. We need some people to come here to help to investigate. I don't trust the police to investigate themselves. Oh, boy. Why wasn't the DEA office in Buffalo called corrupt in the, but Bahamian law? You all are looking at the wrong thing. That's irrelevant to this matter. What does that have to do with anything to do with us? We're talking about ourselves here. And this is what we need to address. What happens in Buffalo, what does that got to do with us? I am not offended by what the American lawyer said. The political leaders are running the Bahamas, not us individual Bahamians. Politicians should hang their heads in shame for the country's bad names. Again, this is in the indictment. The prosecutors are saying it too, and they've got more Bahamians scheduled for trial. So it's not just the defense lawyer. The defense lawyer was corroborating what the prosecutors are saying, which, when does that happen? That's the scary thing. This person says here, thank you, Dwight. Gaslighting our law enforcement minister, starting to get very, what? No, okay. I'm offended. How dare the Minister of National Security imply that all of us Bahamians are corrupt? That's not what he was doing. He's saying if you agree, though, with what that agree with what the lawyers say, then you must be corrupt, which is really what? What are you doing? They said all law enforcement, not us regular people. They said the system, which is bigger than just the agency. The current prime minister was not part of the PLP during that drug era. He was one. Nope. I'm not going to read the rest of that text. Question, was anyone other than Bahamians charged in this trafficking case? Yeah, 2 Colombians. Are they selling drugs to themselves in the U.S.? How is it that there's not anyone on the receiving end charged? Boy. Texter. The people charged with drug possession and probably every hour in the U.S. So I don't know what you're saying, but that's, again, irrelevant. The U.S. has to deal, and the Bahamas has to deal with the people who love drugs so much they'll do anything to get it, but that's not what we're talking about here. Good morning. I love your show. I especially love to hear from the callers like 52. Please have a beautiful weekend. Balance the show with a female alongside you. Do you listen to this show? We got most of my co-hosts are women. You mean today? Oh, okay. Well, they're off today. But we have Deandra, we have Duquesa, we have Laverne, and we've got a couple of guys as well. Okay. And this person says, America always makes every country seem to be corrupted, but we watch the police over there kill innocent people in cold blood, and they get off, and they're naming some names. Americans can't point no fingers because everyone is on drugs. Well, that's why the demand is so high. The Bahamas doesn't grow or produce cocaine, so like the late, great Prime Minister Pilling said, they expect a small country to stop drugs when they are a giant-sized country and can't stop it. Boy. They don't expect people to be facilitating, especially high-ranking officials, neither should we expect high-ranking officials to be able to facilitate or thwart the attempts to stop the trafficking of drugs through the country, right? Yes, the demand is huge, and celebrated in the United States. That's, again, irrelevant to what's happening here, right? We need to be able to trust our leaders and the people in positions of authority, and we seem to have a challenge. We've got to take a break. We're going to be talking about national development. When we come back, this is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9.
5, 6, 7, 8, please don't be too late. Still counting, 9, 10, this jamming once again. 4, 3, 2, 1, this party you can done at the center. The center. The center. The center. The center, 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 center. The center. The center. The center. The center, 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 center. Oh, come on. Yes, man. Let's go. Baby, you say I can't go out with you. No, 'cause when we dance, I just take off my shoe. Yeah, everybody just spell it out now. I gonna tell you one thing tonight.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Southwest Plaza has so many stores, I've been trying to find a sensible way to list them all. There's CBS Bahamas, the Ashai Institute, BENC Snack World, Bamboo Shack Bahamas, they're the Athlete's Foot and BTC, Games and More, John Bull, Fine Threads, Alive, Bahari, Dairy Queen, 700 Wines and Spirits, Sandy's, Clarkson, Island Lock, Starbucks and Lowe's Pharmacy, plus Marco's Pizza and Lorraine. Southwest Plaza, what a wide array of stores. Southwest Plaza, stop by today and explore.
No one likes a fender bender. Oh, man. From a little scratch to a full mashup, NUA Insurance has got you covered with auto insurance tailored to fit your needs and budget. For affordable rates with free on-site accident assistance, visit us online or in branch and just ask us. NUA Insurance. Ask us because we've got you covered.
Looking for insurance that fits your lifestyle and your budget? At Star General Insurance, we've got you covered. Whether it's motor insurance with flexible options for third-party liability and comprehensive coverage, or commercial insurance products that protect your business, we have choices you can afford. Own a home or renting? Our home insurance products have just what you need. And for the adventurers out there, we offer marine insurance too. Visit our website or social media pages for contact information and quotes. Star General, insurance made simple.
Public transportation drivers, start your day the smart way. Roka's gas station. Get a whopping 12 cents per gallon off diesel. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's unheard of, but it's true. Roka's loyalty card saves you money, and it's free. Get yours now on the spot. Wide entrance, multiple pumps, no congestion. In and out fast. So Malawala Highway and Faith Avenue. Roka.
Struggling to find your financial rhythm? Make that move to Fidelity and let us help you orchestrate your financial goals into perfect harmony with free financial coaching sessions. Make that move today. Call 356-7764.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. Don't you know that?
Welcome back to Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strong with you on this Friday morning. As promised, we are talking about the National Development Plan, and we're very pleased to have with us the chairman of the National Development Plan Secretariat, Felix Stubbs, and Ambassador to the Holy See, Joe Curry. Good to have you all with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
All right, so we know that it's a big day. This is the today ends the public consultation. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, so let's talk about what's been happening over the past few weeks, months, and where we go from here.
Okay, let me just ask you to talk about those details. But basically, for the last several months, we have
Let's tilt that mic up a little bit there.
Yeah, for the last several months, we've been working on several things. One, looking at the Vision 20 plan and seeing how relevant it is. But more importantly, we've been working for the Bahamas Public Policy Institute. That is important to us because the Institute gives us the authority to do the plan without interference from government. It also gives us the resources we need. And so we are very, very eager to get this plan approved within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. All right. So this is not the end for you to give your views on the National Development Plan.
So while today is the deadline for public consultation, the next steps are for us to take that information, send it back to the Attorney General's office, and then we'll meet with parliamentarians probably 2 or 3 weeks' time. But in that 2 to 3 weeks period, we will take comments from the public and try to implement them into the finalization of the draft bill.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Curry, tell us a little more.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this show and for us to share with the Bahamian people some views on the National Development Plan and where it is and where it's going. First of all, I need to context the comments I'm about to make by talking about the fact that this process began about 2013. Fast forward to 2016. A document is produced after extensive consultations with the Bahamian people, stakeholders, ordinary citizens throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Fast forward to 2026, and more specifically, stepping back about 18 months ago, I was appointed executive director of the NDP Secretariat with the mandate, with the responsibility to cause the process to move forward. Establish an office, staff it technically, review where we left off at to determine what has happened since then. And quite a bit has happened in terms of the what we call their 4 pillars that constitute the entire document. And from those 4 pillars, you will also have a number of goals, a number of strategies how to achieve those goals. And the team has been busy over the last 3 months reviewing that document. And earlier this week, we shared with the NDP Steering Committee our findings. That's very important to understanding where you are and what are the next steps, which is where you're leading to. And the next steps, as the chairman has mentioned, has to do with the consultations, the engagements, the parliamentary buy-in, because there are two parts of this process. One has to do with the creation of a planning institute of the Bahamas. That is what the chairman mentioned. That entity, which would be a statutory legal entity with the ability to manage, develop, monitor, review, and adjust the priorities within that plan, but also to receive on a continuous basis, because it's not a static document. It's intended to be open, and it's simply not static because plans are not, by their very nature, and because of international global economic events that can impact on what happens in our small country, we have to be able to not only respond to, but have vision as to where the Bahamas wants to go. And that's not going to come from a government only, but it's going to come from ordinary Bahamians, the Bahamian diaspora, academia, stakeholders such as the Chamber of Commerce, ORG, civil society. All those people are going to weigh in on this conversation.
All right, so you mentioned the draft from a few years ago, the Vision 2040 draft plan there. Was it a plan? Let people know, because there's some confusion about it. Or was it the framework for what, right?
It's
for
a draft
what was
framework.
needed?
Exactly.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily the ideas and the plan as yet, right? Or
it was a bit of that as well.
Okay.
So if you go back to what we did in 2016, there was a plan. That plan was 80% complete. So it wasn't. So it's still a draft plan, and as the ambassador just described, so we've taken that draft and we've modernized it.
Okay,
basically what we've done, and so we will go to the public and consult on the changes to that plan shortly. The consultation that we're doing now is primarily for the institute.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, if people have ideas and have a plan, what should they be doing?
Well, let me say that since the consultations began about almost 3 weeks ago, we have been receiving comments. We have put the bill on the website of the NDP. We've also invited them to share their comments, share their own ideas as to what the bill speaks to, but also what their views are on the plan. Those ideas, those comments, those feedback, we intend to, over the next week, to go through those and to compile them into a document that speaks to what are the comments of persons on the bill, more immediate, and what are the, I should mention, because this is very important, the Urban Bank is a partner with the government of the Bahamas, the people of the Bahamas on the NDP, and they've been partners from day one. The second partner is the University of the Bahamas, which we value as a bank of academia, research, cutting edge students who are going to be part of this process as well, and they're going to feed into what happens. And we've been in consultation with the IDB and our next UB.
Okay, all right. So I want to go back to the Planning Institute that you're talking about, and tell us a little more about the significance of this. And I suspect this is, am I wrong? You want to put this in place so that no matter what happens in the future in terms of elections, this will still move on despite any of that. Is that right?
Yes, so the Institute will give us stability. It will also give us some autonomy as well, because the way the current draft of the bill is written, reasons we want the bill. One is to constitute for this institute.
Right.
And then secondly is to talk about the responsibilities of the institute. And as Joe has already mentioned, the responsibilities of the institute, it really is to help formulate policy for government. What the bill also does is gives the institute the ability to raise its own funds. And so that will allow us to do some things that may be limited by government funding, like the research and those kinds of things we need to do, hiring the technical skills that we need to make sure this thing happens. And so that's the reason why it's very important that we move this bill forward. And I want to make sure, for clarity, people understand that while we're consulting on the bill currently, once we've passed this road, we'll then go back to the public on what I'd call Vision 2040, which is the plan, Vision 2040. And much like we did in 2016, 2014, we will go to every island, to every community, to civic groups all over the country, getting their input. So people need not be concerned about whether their input is going to be heard.
This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I got to ask you, weeks back, you said you're having some pushback, some challenges with the permanent secretaries of this. I don't know how they responded to that being made public, but have things gotten better?
Well, let's put it this way. So no permanent secretary has written to me complaining. Two of them wrote to me commending my comments.
Wow.
Right? But the good thing is when we hold this parliamentary session to discuss the bill, parliamentary secretaries will be involved. And I'll have a chance to meet them personally and chat with them and kind of explain them. My concern or my frustration was that as permanent secretaries, they need to act like CEOs of their ministry. And so they got to be more forceful, more aggressive. Secondly, the government has to work like that. We can't have silos, ministry to ministry to ministry. Wow. So we need them to work as a team. And so those are kinds of things the plan or Vision 2040 is going to focus on, because one of the pillars is governance, good governance. And good governance means that, we have good leadership, teamwork, we can inspire our workers. Absolutely. And so that's what I'm asking them for.
Absolutely. All right, so people listening and they want to contribute, they want to have their voices heard. What can they do right now?
Well, let me indicate to the public that there is a website that we have. It's being updated. They can send their views to info@2040bahamas.org. They can also visit the site at www.vision2040bahamas. We are looking at the whole question of rebranding the 2040 conversation. Because,
it's pretty close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's part of visioning as well. And we propose to go through that exercise is also going to be a consultative one. We're going to hear from the high schools, the university students. Tell us what should be our focus, even as a vision image.
Right.
Persons who want to, we now finally have an office, but they can write into us. They can come and sit and talk with us. Center, 5th floor, East Bay Street. But the ability for persons to input on what we do is that means at the moment. We intend to also launch officially the establishment of the institute. Once it's gone through that legislative process, we'll have a team of people. Those who want us to come and talk to them, they just need to let us know. We'll come to them.
Yeah.
We'll have that conversation with them. We are excited because we have a very, very talented team of young Bahamians working with us. We're about to engage a few more. Okay. What's interesting about it, Dwight, is that, and I was we're hoping a meeting with the leader opposition separately and in different occasions, and it says, there are a lot of young Bahamians overseas who want to come home, who want to contribute to this plan, and those who are coming in and who are talking with us about not necessarily even as staff, but as Bahamians who want to actually be a part of this process in whatever way we think they are best able to. That's very important because, as I would have said on many occasions to persons, this is not a political plan. This is a national plan and a people's plan. So what comes from it is what's going to come from the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are hoping that the institute will be in place before any general elections.
Well, my timeline is by the end of February, we should have the bill before Parliament. And so hopefully by the following month, it should go through the Senate and we should have a bill. Now, whether we have to have regulations and those kinds of things, I'm not sure. But I know that we will have a bill, and that would give us the authority to move forward. But just on a point of talking about the Bahamian diaspora, the number of Bahamians who are wanting to come back home to assist. I get messages on LinkedIn, Gmail, WhatsApp, every single day. And surprisingly, many of these people I know from Drink Achievement.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But they're saying, tell me how we can help. Tell me if there's an opportunity for me to come back and assist. And that's very heartwarming for me.
That's beautiful. All right, so this is probably going to be the beginning of many times you'll be on the show then.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Coming up and say, man, we need a standard.
Yeah, we can work it out. We'll sort it out. This is very exciting again. Joe Curry and Felix Stubbs, thank you both for being here this morning. And again, the National Development Plan, we're going to get this going, and it might be bigger than 2040, but we've got to work on that vision.
Oh, we'll be bigger than 2040.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Excellent stuff. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having us.
Mr. Strachan.
All right, we're going to break for news and be back with our history series with the Clifton Heritage Authority. You don't want to miss that. Coming up, stay with us.
Thank you, sir. 'Cause it's lies you're telling. I inviting everybody to visit my industry. Oh yes, man. Come in the hour if you.
Is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas. The hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Blend Business on this final Friday of January 2026. This is January 30th, 2026. Once again, I'm Dwight Strachan. Welcome back to our Morning Blend listeners. It is time for our monthly history series with the Clifton Heritage Authority, and very happy to have with us historian Christopher Davis, as always. Good morning, sir. Great to have you with us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me, brother. And good morning, Bahamas.
All right, so this is going to be an interesting one today. It's always interesting, but it's going to be a feather ruffler, I suspect. So I'm framing it as, we're on the eve of Black History Month in the U.S. And
right,
we adopt all these things, hey? But looking at the history of racism in this country, inspired by some messages we had earlier in the week, and you called in on one of these mornings. But there are a lot of people alive today in the Bahamas who can tell you some stories about some things they experienced.
Certainly.
Just a few decades ago, but often don't talk about these things.
Right.
For some interesting reason, I don't know if you have a theory on why that is before we get deeper into the history of racism here.
Unfortunately, in the Bahamas, in the way that our culture sort of shifted, it's almost like we shift into this almost default setting where we sort of downplay racism and racial issues in the Bahamas, right? And at the end of the day, I wouldn't kind of blame Bahamians or any Bahamian that doesn't have a firm grasp on racism, how it manifests today in many areas like wealth disparity, just to name one way, or how it existed, like after slavery, and of course how it existed during slavery, right? And there's always been this sort of narrative of the Bahamas not having slavery being milder in the Bahamas. Though I love and respect and honor fully Dame Doris Johnson, I disagree with one sort of concept, which was the Quiet Revolution. We can get into some of that as well, And I'm not blaming Doris Johnson, of course, for pushing this narrative, but the British sort of always propped up the Bahamas as like this sort of model colony, right? When you go on some of the old websites and you see some of these pictures, there's a famous picture with a white woman posing with about 9 children and a family right there with somewhere on Meadow Street, I believe, right? And it's a famous picture about sort of tourism in the early 20th century in the Bahamas. But oftentimes the caption of that photo is deleted, right? And the caption and the title of that photo is actually 9 little N-words. I don't want to say the N-word,
no.
right? So that's actually the caption.
Wait, where would that have been printed?
So you had many photos and postcards of the Bahamas. So this is a very famous photo. I don't want to call any of the entities that pushed it out or would have covered it up. But if you look, you could literally type that phrase, that horrible phrase I just said, 9 little N-words Bahamas, and you will see the photo. And many people will recognize it as a photo that typically appeared in historical writings and documents with the caption actually edited out, right? So that's just one small example of how, racism was sort of hidden.
Yeah.
There's another one with a black child in the Bahamas swimming in a pond, right? And the caption of that one is alligator bait. And so you often hear a narrative of us focusing on American racism, and it's not the same in the Bahamas. And of course, there are, stark differences, particularly when you look at demographics and stuff like that. However, we have to remember that these things do interlap. We very near to the United States. Our enslavers, in fact, came from the southern United States for the most part. Your surname is Strachan. That's a quote-unquote loyalist surname. Mine is Davis. That's a quote-unquote loyalist surname, though there was some before the loyalists, so we have to start to recognize these things, right? And it's not about us grabbing pitchforks and just willy-nilly saying we don't like this white, because though there's a lot of systematic racism, though, a lot of companies that existed today, some of them have completely shifted where if you look at them 80 years ago, and they were on the wrong side of history, and then today I don't think anyone will argue that they're on the right side of history, to understand what I'm talking about. But it doesn't mean that the people that run and own them today are these vicious racists that existed
Right.
Back then, right?
Yeah. And often it's not the same voters.
Right, yeah, and oftentimes
not
it's
always.
right, not
Right,
always,
yeah.
right? Not always, right? But these institutions, a lot of these institutions that exist here, particularly some of the foreign ones, I don't know if I want to get into that one today, but I can throw a couple of nuggets out there. But a lot of this is published in my writings, and people will be able to learn about it in the future as we install more of these educational panels and historical exhibits out there at Clifton Heritage National Park.
All right, so before we get deeper into it, you know this. Every time we talk about these things, people say, why are you doing this? Why are you talking about this now? Get over it. It was 80, 100 years ago. We're not like that anymore. Things have changed. Be happy that things have changed. What do you say?
Most of us believe in the Bible, and the Bible pretty much occurred 2,000 years ago and older, right? So that narrative for me is just not even valid. It's completely erroneous. You can't just dismiss centuries of history. Every nation in the Western Hemisphere, including the Bahamas, though it's getting close now, has had African slavery for longer than it's been outside of African slavery. Wow. And that includes the Bahamas. The Bahamas would kind of break even within the next decade or so. You understand what I'm saying?
Goodness.
Right. So when you think about
that says it hurts to think about it like that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
but these are facts, and no one can sort of deny these things. And we have to understand that racism, I actually say, is a sort of symptom of much of the economic and sort of military prowess that Western Europe and the Christian at the time, right? And so there are many harmful things and tough pills to swallow when we talk about racism as well, right? But, honest historians have to really speak very frankly about these things. Yeah. And then you also have many commentators, I hate to say, I could call no names, who sort of still contribute to this narrative as well, right? So the other day, right here on the station, actually, not the other day, this is several months ago, I heard people talking about Stafford Sands, and it was just this huge sort of bending to try and portray Stafford Sands as, quote unquote, not that bad of a guy, right? Now, Stafford Sands, one of the things they were saying is like, oh, he wasn't really into politics. This is a man who served more than 3 decades as a politician. It'd be like saying Fred Mitchell ain't into politics. Wow. He'd been a politician for over 3 decades, right? Essentially. So that's one thing. And then when you look at people like Stafford Sands, right, and we look at even the existence of our nation as a whole, right, when we talk about racism in the Bahamas, you often have these proverbial supervillains that pop up, and every nation has them, right? Every nation has them. And for the Bahamas, particularly in our modern history, if we had to pick one guy as the racist enemy, to use a proverbial term, it'd probably be Stafford Sands, right? Wow. And he fought against every single progressive move in this country in the lead up to majority rule, right up to independence, right?
So I think I know where you're going with this, because we'll hear a lot of entertainers celebrate him and say that he brought so many tourists to our establishments, and things were so much better when he was around, and we are now dying.
So let's debunk this myth as well, right? So tourism in the Bahamas had its first real appreciable boom during the Prohibition era, right? And this was before Stafford Sands had really fully sunk his claws in politically. He was still a pretty young man by then, and not a seasoned politician and an at that point, right? That's number one. Number 3, I love to shout out one of my teachers. I hope she don't mind, but Miss Badia Seymour Raming. I hope I got the order of the surnames correctly. She teaches heritage tourism down there at the University of the Bahamas. It's a course that I took. And it had a great influence on me. Actually, just had a conversation with her the other day. And it talks about essentially the history of tourism. So when you look at these global tourism books, they always talk about the Bahamas, right? And it's funny that they don't present Stafford Sands in the same way that we do. This quote-unquote myth of the Stafford Sands model of tourism, which is essentially just wealthy white, mostly foreigners, because white Bahamians don't even own no major resorts. At the end of the day, they own major tour companies and these other things, but they don't own no major resorts. As it is in Jamaica, white Jamaican, at least they own sandals, you understand what I'm saying? Not to call the company out like that, but it's the truth, right? Now, when we look at and this myth about him being the father of tourism, there are many other factors that we learned in this lesson, Okay? Now, one of them was that the Cuban Revolution happened, right? So when the Cuban Revolution happened, there's this huge drive away from Cuba and other communist-leaning countries to find other places. This is what drove Bahamians gas to the Bahamas, right? One of the other things was actually quite simple. It was air conditioning. You see, it was air conditioning. And then the third thing, which was also quite simple, was like more regular flights. And then there was a global impact on tourism, of which the Bahamas benefited most because Americans, who generally had the most capital, were able to use that to travel. And this is when the World Labor Organization, which is sort of a sister institution to the UN, they passed a law that every worker needs to have at least 2 weeks vacation a year.
Wow.
You see?
Yeah.
So what Stafford Science have to do with these things? That's number one. All he did was position himself in a way so that he could benefit from something that was already happening. The one industry I could probably give him credit to is one that we are actually frowned upon for, which is this culture of, I don't want to use the ML term, but the culture of people moving their funds here and being able to hide it, you know what I mean? Offshore investments, offshore banking, and all of the negative, and I guess we could argue positive ramifications that came with that. But remember, he was a complex figure because though he seemed to have been a Nazi sympathizer, and this is seen by the sort of relationship he formed with a man named Heinrich Schultz, right, who was the Reichsbank president under the Third Reich, under Hitler's government, and also his former Minister of Economics. And this part is no secret. When you Google Sir Stafford Sands, his Wikipedia page is him pictured with him. And when you look at the details, it talks about this in 1962, long after, tourism really started to pick up, right? And I think this notion of father of tourism is one that Bahamians, though we, in my opinion, are very traumatized from racism, it's like we don't want to admit it. And as a response to that, we sort of take these people who, and even white Bahamians, should be vilifying and propping them up. So Stafford Sands is a man who said, quote, "Over my dead body should women ever be able to vote in this country." He is a man who said that black family islanders shouldn't have the right to vote and push for what they call the plural vote, which means that pretty much the more money you have, the more assets you have, your vote could count for more than one. Imagine that. And that typically benefited white people and even some people, quote unquote, who were very mixed but could pass as white through this so-called brown paper bag test, right? And Stafford Sands, let me just pull up this quote that I just happened to have in my phone, that he said. So the ultimate event of resistance in the 20th century to racism was the Burma Road Uprising, right? So I always say Burma Road Uprising, not Burma Road Riot, because a riot is when Manchester United lose the FA Cup final and the fans get mad and start flipping over some cars and getting in some fights. But an uprising is a response and it's more organized, right? And you see uprisings that happen today where 90%, 95% of the people are protesting peacefully for the cause, then you have one or two people teeth and TV in the background, and of course, that's what they can focus on, right? Wow. So even our uprising was very similar to that. But here's what Stafford Sands had to say, and you could find this in the Russell Commission, though it was published 5 years later in 1947. It's a British colonial document of what was going on in the Bahamas, to put it simply. This is also referenced in Gail Saunders' Race and Class in the Bahamas. I have to source this up because this part is a little out there, right? But it's right from his own mouth, right?
Boy. Okay.
And then we have it sourced out there in one of our exhibits at Clifton Heritage National Park. So first of all, 5 people at least died in resistance.
And we don't talk about that.
And we don't talk about them, know their names.
This was fatal. People died
Certainly.
as a result of this.
And they were
uprising.
killed by British officials, you understand? And this is Stafford Sands as the uprising was kicking up. Shoot definitely at the leaders, not to fire over the heads of the crowds, as it only encourages them, and they feel that the police are not able to deal with them. Stafford Sands on the Burma Road Uprising, the Russell Commission, 1942.
Wow.
So here's a man who encouraged protesters in the Bahamas who were protesting equal rate, who were protesting racial segregation, who were just protesting for basic respect. You understand? here is Stafford signs demand on our $10 bill, by the way, encouraging colonial officials to shoot these people dead.
Yeah.
And of course, this is exactly what ended up happening. And I'll just read a report from the newspaper in 1942. Coroner's inquest in the deaths of Harold McIntosh, David Smith, Roy Johnson, and Donald Johnson. So that's 4 of the 5 that we know of. And the 5th name is James Roll, which occurred as a result of quote-unquote riot on June 1st. Were opened in the magistrate court this week. The investigation into McIntosh death will be resumed on Friday, June 12th. That of David and Roy on Tuesday, June, and that of Johnson has been adjourned for a week. Donald's son was 23 years old. Harold McIntosh is 36. The ages of the other 2 have not been revealed. It is understood that David Smith and Roy Johnson died during the riot. McIntosh's death resulted from breaking curfew near Hawkins Hill, and Donald Johnson was shot by Richard Halbert, a shopkeeper in Blue Hill Road.
Wow, they killed someone for breaking curfew?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You see? And that is James Roll. Okay? And this is another report from the same newspaper. James Roll dies from riot rules. James Alexander Roll, who was shot in the head and hand during the disturbance in Nassau on June 1st, has died at BG Hospital late Saturday night. Okay? So...
And BG Hospital, the precursor
and this
to
kind of literally
Princess
aligns
Margaret.
with precisely what Stafford Sign says. Don't shoot over the head. Shoot definitely, right? And so we have to think about these people, and we have to respect our own ancestors. This is not even about any ego or any revenge today. For me, it's really about respect and commemoration for our ancestors who made the ultimate sacrifice to us to be here. And of course, there were many others that died during slavery.
Wow.
You have Dick DeVoe from Kid Island. Of course, Kate Moss, who is both of whom were recently inducted as national heroes. You have Cormino, one of the Hunter warriors of John Canoe, who was executed in 1734 for an attempted full-scale revolt. 1755, Governor John Tinker killed a man who resisted his enslavement and overseer and hit him in his shoulder. And just because the other fellow was his friend, John Tinker executed the other guy just because it was his friend and they used to roll together, essentially. Now, John Tinker, our longest-serving governor, before he was the governor of the Bahamas, do you know what he was doing? He was the governor of Cape Coast Castle in Ghana, one of the most famous and largest and most prolific slaving forts in West Africa, you see? And that even alludes to how they like to make you think that Africans were the ones doing it to themselves, as if Europeans did not have their stations over there, which essentially amounted to thieving and slaving factories, right? And all of this matters. So racism is something that globally, and all of it sort of bounces off of each other and affects us here, right? And in the Bahamas, of course, particularly back then, racism was certainly real, and it doesn't mean, of course, that there aren't many white Bahamians that amalgamate with us culturally, you know what I mean? But of course, recent videos have surfaced and have shown us that racism is still certainly alive and well in the Bahamas in overt and subtle ways.
All right, so let's talk about, when would you say, you brought up during slavery, but even in the 20th century, periods where you could see it. Is there a time when you could say that racism was like thick in the air everywhere in the Bahamas?
Well,
what time was that?
To be honest, since the arrival of Christopher Columbus, racism, though it wasn't called as much yet, and what we now know as race in terms of black and white was not fully formulated as we know it today yet in the days of Christopher Columbus. But race and ethnicity was certainly a factor from then. The Lutheran adventurers, there was 73 of them. Now, I only use the term Lutheran adventurers because people know what you're talking about.
Right.
But academically, I say those Puritan migrants from Bermuda.
Oh, boy.
And see, what we like to do is dress up all these people who were essentially enslavers with all these cute names to try to whitewash these stories and make it sound like it was so pure and holy, right? When 28 of that 73 were people of African descent. And according to Dr. Curry, myself, and others who have done research, it's certain that many of them were enslaved. And of course, if you know the story,
They really don't teach us that in school.
Yeah, well, they're teaching it now.
Teaching it now with the curriculum change.
Yours truly made sure that was there, right? And of course, we all know the story, or many of us know the story of how they cut down. Some say it was Brazilito, some say it was Madeira, some say it was mahogany, but essentially they cut down this valuable wood that was then sent back to Massachusetts. So we're talking about the enslaved labor of just a few dozen Africans, right here in the Bahamas.
Well, you don't think the others were involved in that at all? They didn't.
Well, they
do
might
any
have
of
done
the
some labor, but I mean, I highly
Oh,
doubt it.
boy.
But back then, and it was such a small group, to be fair, they certainly would have participated in the labor, but not in the same way as the enslaved people. Surely not, right? And essentially, that wood was sold in Massachusetts, and that went into an investment of the first buildings of Harvard College, or what we now know as Harvard University, right? And so racism is
Did you
just
get any
not
scholarships out of that?
We need to make that story out there. Y'all talking heads who always here, y'all need to push it. Let it be known. It is something that is known by certain people at Harvard. And to be fair, I think there are some voices in Harvard that would certainly be okay with that. And if you want to get specific, people from Eleuthera and people of Eleuthera descent, and the Lutherans could really use it in a form of quote-unquote restorative justice in terms of doing some of the things that they feel may need to be, instead of having to rely on the government for everything, because we all know the government is stretched very, very thin. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So, the 19th century versus 20th century. Would you say was it worse? One worse than the other?
The 19th century up until 1838, you had chattel slavery. Of course, that is the pinnacle of what we describe as racism, where by law you weren't even considered as fully human, right? But right after that, it's not like there was this total shift in the attitude towards blacks. It was actually quite the opposite. Now, the control that we had over them as being their enslavers is now gone, so we have to find other ways. Now, in America, there is a well-known system known as the sharecropper system. And the Bahamian equivalent to that, though, is not exactly the same, because the sharecropper system, a lot of it had to do with you actually living on the same land. That wasn't always the case, but many times the case in the Bahamas. But the truck and credit system, which would be the Bahamian equivalent to the sharecropper system. So the truck and credit system is a pretty complex system, but it's really simple. And to put it simply, it was just a way for merchants, most of whom were whites, to quote unquote on the outside seem like they're employing blacks, but what they're doing is they're paying them, what they would call paying them in kind. And what typically happened is, so if I have, let's say, a sponge fleet, which is one of the industries where this happened the most, and in the most brutal ways sometimes. The sponging industry, I bring you on my sponge boat, I own the sponging boat, right? And so no matter how hard you work, I give you a place to sleep, I give you a couple of bottles of water. It get cold, so I give you a jacket, right? You bring me back all these sponges. So the little that I paying you, I ain't paying you in cash, I'm paying you in the same sponges, which you help me pick, and I keep in literally like 99% of the rest. My cousin is the one buying the sponges and facilitating, you get it, right?
Yeah.
So who can buy these sponges from you? And then when you come to me and I just string you along, right? Just how the truck and credit system is implemented here. And then you say, well, where the money? I sure you have something for me. But now you say, you were spending 30 days on my boat. And of course, they would charge you exorbitant fees for all of these things. And so what you found is that most Bahamians of African descent found themselves in a cycle of crippling debt. I've heard some voices now arising talking about how you can't blame the white man for taking the land, it's the black people who sell it to them, right? So first of all, this was done through trickery and ignorance, where many blacks at the time were illiterate. So for those who are very frustrated today and would look at the past and see all these pictures of people smiling and remembering the good old days, we have to also remember that certain things were a lot better. Our literacy rate now is one of the highest in the Western Hemisphere. and in the world, actually, particularly when you look at the African diaspora, and back then the literacy rate was extremely low, extremely low. You understand? And so these are things that have improved since majority rule, since independence, right? And all of these things are sort of inextricably linked with racism, right? So when we say majority rule, a lot of people say, well, it was not about race. Back then, it certainly was, and that's what we say when we mean majority. What made everyone a majority? You had so many different people. Everyone is a different denomination of Christianity, Baptist, Pentecostal, Church of God, Anglican, Catholic, Presbyterian, all the Methodists, all these different denominations. People have slightly different beliefs, slightly different ways they do things. We even have different dialects throughout the Bahamas, right? But the one thing that made us the majority was being of African descent to varying degrees. And then, of course, identifying as such. And as we know in the Bahamas, if you have a certain hue, though you wouldn't be considered to be white in other places in Europe or in North America, you live as and consider yourself to be white here. Yeah. And that is one of the sort of the undertones of the term Conky Joe. Right.
Yeah. Wow. We're talking with historian Christopher Davis with the Clinton Heritage Authority, talking about racism in the Bahamas, the history of racism in the Bahamas. Callers, we'll get to you in a second. We want to get to segregation. We don't talk about that much, but it was definitely happening here. We hear the stories. After a certain hour, you had to be out of certain places. You couldn't be here or there. Certainly. How bad did it get here?
Yeah, so segregation is something that still manifests today, right? Though a lot of it isn't as it was back then, like a plain and overt and blatant saying, oh, I'm going to live around these black people. It has to do with sort of wealth and class, the culture of living in gated communities that tend to be by the water in the far east and the far west and stuff like that, right? And of course, there are still vestiges of segregation that still exists in the Bahamas to this day. So we have the famous, what I would call, and I got to thank one of my mentors, Dr. Grace Chernoff, for this one, who was over at AMMC when Mina was talking about Collins Wall. And she corrected him. She's like, you mean, and she said it with so much arrogance, and such, I used to find it so cool. She was like, you mean the Western Collins Wall? Oh, wow. Right? and that's the one that ran across Ross Corner and all them, the one that we all know.
Because there was an Eastern one too?
Right. Yeah. There was an Eastern Collins Wall, right? I guess behind
a Southern one, maybe?
The old immigration building in Hawkins Hill. You can see some ruins of it right there. So Collins, the big rum runner, who built that big house, property. The white guy who built that to keep the black people out. He didn't only want to keep the dark skins ones out. He wanted to keep the set who lived behind the old city market out too. And though many of them are whites, phenotypically and apparently and culturally, and it's no insult to them, and some of them today will admit it too. It's not like a lot of these people being like, oh, I don't have no black. A lot of them, most of them, for the most part, would admit, yeah, man, I know I have some, or my great-great-grandma was black, but, in this world, your phenotype, how you appear, is sort of really affects your destiny even today, right? So to make that comparison between the 18th, 19th, 20th century, in the late 18th century, the late 1700s, when the Loyalists arrived, that was when racism really picked up. And it should be of no surprise because these Loyalists came from the American South. And then slavery continued, but they, of course, loyal to Britain. And then you had institutions like the trucking credit system that created this huge cycle of debt that kept economic control over blacks. And this was something that was done right up to the 1960s.
Some would say that's still happening.
Oh, yeah, and some, exactly, and some would, and all right. And to be honest, people didn't like this part. We often talk about undocumented migrants and immigrants, but today that's what happens to the most. And that is another factor of why it's such an important issue. It's not just about our feelings, whether they be guided or misguided about nationalism, our feelings toward that. A big part of it too is undocumented people in any country that they are in. Just open for exploitation. Yeah. And so if someone was undocumented and you want them work for you, and you say, man, you won't get no papers, they paying you $125 a week, And these are things that actually happens in the Bahamas, right? Yeah. Now back to, of course, the topic, racism, right? So this is something that exists now. The demographics are a lot different, right? And of course, I've had conversations with white Bahamians, and they'll be in groups and people just be like, yeah, white boy, you know what I mean? And they, of course, would be offended by it, So it don't mean that an individual incidents, a black person can't offend a white person in those individuals. But when you look at it from a macro level, and of course, when you, look at the weight of the history and how racism was even implemented by Europeans to put Europeans at the top, and everyone else in the middle, and Africans at the bottom. Racism it was scientific. They had freak shows. There was two twins, quote unquote mulatto twins, who may have had some form of deformity, but they were from Harbor Island, and they used to put them on display as freak shows. And there's evidence now, I'm still doing research on it, that they may have ended up going into quote unquote freak shows in the United States. And these were also inextricably linked with racism, right? So you did have the weird looking person where race didn't have much to do with it, but you also had the quote unquote African savage, which seemed to have been the major seller, the major, and you have people like Oda Benga. So racism is global, and all of these things were taught throughout these centuries and infused and embedded. So when you hear people talking about blacks innately being inferior, less intelligent, you hear it coming on social media now. There's this new sort of brazenness with racism that exists now that thankfully don't seem to be trickling down here too much, but it don't need to trickle down here because it still exists in our own sort of unique way, right?
Wow. We hear a lot, we don't hear much, but we had places, colored only entrances,
certainly,
and white only, whites only.
Certainly.
Places. So
Bay Street, now, if you want to learn about the actual company or some of them, listen, and it's so ironic as a historian when you hear certain things. Some of the same, let's just call them business institutions that have been popping up even on some of your shows and stuff they've been saying and stuff they've been doing. And it seems like Bahamians always seem to get the short end of the stick with them. Some of them are foreign based. I can leave that right there. If you was to reveal the racist history that these people have, not just in the Bahamas, but globally, in their ties to slavery and all of these things, they would certainly sit small in certain things, and it would certainly give Bahamians, whether we're talking about the government or the public, or their employees, whoever it is, a lot more leverage against them. But I can leave that one right there. You got to come see me at Clifton Heritage Park for that one.
Right. Is it possible? I have a former coworker who tells the story, and I find it so hard to believe. But they're saying that after majority rule, that a certain company still had a special entrance for colored people. This is before independence, but right after. So could that have possibly been accurate? And
100%. So every time in any space, particularly in Western nations, when blacks make a stride against racism, there's always a reaction. So most recently, you saw Black Lives Matter, blacks starting to protest and have these uprisings in response to unjustified killings. And you're seeing it now. I don't get too much into that. You had the same thing then, and there was always this sort of racist response. I'm going to get too much into it because, again, this is something that is so sensitive, and the Bahamas is such a small place. And these are institutions who may not be guilty of these things today. These might be institutions who, in my ignorance, might have already done things to rectify these things quietly. And I don't know, you understand? So I don't want to put those things out there on the airwaves just like that, But there were schools. They reacted with schools. They reacted with companies and shops and restaurants and theaters as well. But by the time independence came, then that's when you saw those things. So it wasn't like majority rule like completely wiped away racism. Then it was another big, huge one, and of course the Stafford Sands. This may be harsh, but I gotta say it. I gotta show my bias. I really don't like the man, but for obvious reasons, right? And it's almost like Stafford Sands when he heard that independence was happening, because he died pretty much right when these things became apparent that we were about to get independence. Like he died right around that time. And it seems that this man was so racist because, when majority rule and those things happened, it is said that he took all of his riches and wealth and sold a lot of his assets and left the Bahamas. Like he was so racist that he actually thought that blacks was just going to laid the country down into the ground, right? And you have literally up until the 1980s where you had so much going on in the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean, even up to the early 90s, some would argue. Though we did have our problems, some with the drug era and all of that, the Bahamas was still sort of propped up as this place that proved that, hey, look, well, blacks can govern themselves in a Western-style democracy. They ain't had no coups. And in that essence, you could say, quote-unquote, quiet revolution, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw some newspaper, the National Guardian from 1967, where Pinling basically is making speeches, telling people, we're going to, things won't change that much. We can do this. And there were so many questions about whether a black government could not destroy the country.
Certainly.
And the people must have been in a panic.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and again, that just speaks to the power of racism and how entrenched and how much it is a part of everybody. Yeah. Whether you say things like, I don't see color, or, it don't mean that you yourself like I say, overtly racist, but it's something that is so systematic. People could do it subconsciously. And you even had blacks who were questioning, remember, because the UBP got a lot of votes. Alvin Brennan, who happened to be a white Bahamian, had to cross the floor, as well as, of course, the late, great Randall Fawkes. Right. Had to cross. So it wasn't like, the sweeping victory came in the following year, when they already got in and were able to do some of the things, But it's something in the Bahamas that is quite unique, but certainly existed, and there are certain parallels that can be drawn with the United States, with Jamaica, with Haiti, with Cuba, with places in Western Europe to here. But of course, certain things would have manifested in this unique way when you look at the sponging pineapple industry. And this is one of the reasons why Bahamians sort of really one of the reasons why we turned away from the agricultural industry, certain fisheries, and some of these things, and you see this across the board, where after colonization and slavery, black people start to go through the sort of phase where we so tired of sacrificing everything, we just looking for comfort, you know what I mean? Wow. And we ain't into growing no pineapples no more, or going fishing and sailing and things like that no more, man. That's hard work. That's what we used to do. Yeah. We don't graduate past that. And of course, there's a beautiful side to that. A side of resilience, a side of sort of taking a step up. But at the same time, you see it across the board where nations sort of forget about the things that were important. However, when we talk about tourism and these things, I would say to remove Stafford Sands from that $10 bill.
You still think that should happen?
Yeah, move him like immediately. Oh, wow. Move him from the $10 bill, and you know what you put there? You don't put no one in particular. You put a flight attendant, you put a woman flight attendant, a male taxi driver, maybe a bellman, or, but you have 2 men and 2 women that represent who we are, and not in a subservient way, in a proud, good, valiant picture with these people in their head held up high, that don't commemorate no one in particular, but just commemorate those Bahamians who I actually argue is really us, our culture, our sort of knack for hospitality, the way that we exploit our natural beauty, and you see people doing it with Airbnb, So we have to give ourselves some credit as Bahamian people for things like tourism.
Yeah. Wow. All right, we're talking with Christopher Davis, historian. Let's get some calls in really quickly. Time has gone by very, very fast here. And we've got a lot of interesting text messages as well. Let's take this call, though. Caller, good morning. You're live on the air.
Hey, great show, as usual, Dwight. You guess how you doing?
Doing well. Good morning.
Right, let me just make this quick because I know time is in essence, right? I never understood racism, right? But for a question for your guest, which one is worse? Because I don't think racism is really substantially a factor in the Bahamas today. But probably in some islands, right? But we have classism. Which one of the schisms is worse, racism or classism? Because to me, classism is just as bad as racism. So I just want to hang up and wait for your guest response on that on classism.
Okay, interesting. We got colorism as well.
Right,
we got a lot of the isms.
I would say that racism is worse. So classism, you could argue, is something that's almost something that would naturally happen with humans in society. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and we are sometimes guilty of painting this utopian picture of how Africa used to be, but I don't do it too much because I'm a historian. I try to be as truthful as possible, right? And even in those societies, you had this sort of natural sort of spilling out of classes that would have existed, right? And even in the most humble of dwellings, the person that had the pond with all the fresh water on his land naturally have a lot of power because he pretty much control the fresh water. You understand? But racism is something different. Racism is something that was mechanized and something that was taught, right? People always had differences, but these were based on linguistic differences, fights over land and resources that made sense. So we're talking about, you actually see it in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria right now, where the Sahara is beginning to encroach. And you have herders and farmers and others fighting against each other over land. They literally fighting like eggs. They would argue, I should say, because I don't think it's ever a reason to fight a war, but they would argue that they are fighting an existential war. You understand? But when you're talking about racism, this is something that was conjured up, invented for the purpose of creating this natural thing that we talk about called class, right? So that's number one. It was done for economics. They wanted to enslave blacks and enslave indigenous Americans like they did to the Lucayans, and racism became the mechanism and the excuse for that. They did this in religious ways and all sorts of other ways, right? Now, two, race and class are inextricably linked. And I would argue that especially in the Bahamas, more so than other nations like the United States, even in some ways. So put it this way, like you have the proverbial quote, and I'm using quotation marks, ghetto that underpaid, underprivileged, the lower economic, quote unquote, class of blacks would living in the United States. You also have the trailer park. Show me one substantial, poor white community in the Bahamas. I ain't talking about, because there are poor whites in the Bahamas, of course, I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about a community of poor whites in the Bahamas. Wow. It ain't one on New Providence for sure. And where do they live? And so when we're talking about economic disparity, and again, it don't mean that white foreigners or white Bahamians hate black Bahamians today. So I would halfway agree with the caller in that statement, right? So you understand, and we're free to do what we want. This is what our ancestors fought for. Yeah. But the remnants of these things still exist, especially when you talk about institutions that are still around, that still benefit, one or two of which that I would argue still function in that same way. But again, you got to come see me at Clifton Heritage National Park to find out who they would be.
Let's take this call. Good morning, caller. You're live on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Dwight. Good morning to Mr. David.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, the caller hinted on something I was going to hit on, but in 1967, then we elected our first majority government, a black government. They couldn't use racism no more. And I really believe that was the beginning of the replacement of racism towards classism, because that is basically our biggest challenge post 1967, and it does basically it is equally as damaging. Or me as a black man, I would argue that it's worse than racism. When your own view you, they come up with this animal farm theory that we all are created equal, but there are some who are more equal than others. That's the problem. You see it in the church, you see it in the family, you see it in all over. But I want to ask you, something, Dwight. Mr. Davis, are there any white Bahamians who you would give anything to? Because it seems as if that you want to eradicate anything that is white. Then I know that there are some white people. And then back during that time, racism was the order of the day throughout the Western Hemisphere and other parts of Europe, etc. But my point is, are there any white people who
let's get him to answer that.
Anything?
Before you answer that, we've had blacks with classism long before majority rule, right? We knew we had wealthier blacks
of
here.
Of course, yeah.
And
though that number was much smaller before majority rule, I mean, the call is just confused. I don't know if he was listening properly. I repeatedly, and I don't even, to be honest with you, I don't even know why I have to do that. But I've repeatedly inserted in between my narrative that it does not mean that all white Bahamians today hate blacks and all of these things. I don't know what he is referring to in terms of us giving that. But let's remember that racism has also crippled the proverbial African spirit that exists in many of us. And racism also taught blacks to hate themselves, right? So I don't know what this man talking about all of this hatred and all this stuff among black Bahamians.
And I mentioned colorism earlier.
Right.
People,
I don't look
dark
at
skinned people
maybe
in
that's
the family.
his experience, but that's not my experience.
Yeah.
I'm an analytical person. So let me just put this out there for the gentleman to refute all that he said. We are a nation with almost the highest cost of living in the world. And almost everybody is underpaid, but no one's starving to death. Like in terms of, we do have food security issues, but no one actually starving. We have housing issues, but no one is as bad as they are in other places in the world. That does not point to, on a macro level as a nation, it does not point to a selfish people. And that shows you that those that do have and are able to do a lot. Maybe they just don't publish it enough, So I don't think we should buy into these overly pessimistic attitudes and outlooks of our country. If we say we love our country, we have to show that we love our country. And in terms of giving whites this and that, Wolf Road, JFK, so many things that Windsor, Victoria, Elizabeth, all of these are names for things. So they are already being praised at every turn in our society today because of the remnants of their racist policies and economic exploitation.
Wow. All right, we've got about 30 seconds left. Some really quick answers to these questions. Someone says, when was Collins Wall built?
Somewhere in the 1910s, if I'm not mistaken, but it coincided, actually the late 1910s. I believe it's 1919, but it pretty much coincided with prohibition in the United States.
This person says, I find it quite insulting that your guest would stand on the shoulders of Sir Stafford Sands and verbally spit in his face. He's the reason why this country is so successful in tourism. He's one of my role models, despite his flaws, which every politician has, including your guest's father. Oh, boy. I think it's disrespectful to talk about the father of tourism in this way.
Well, I say that the father of tourism was a racist hag and a swindler who worked with people like Meyer Lansky. This is where I talk about how complex he was. So on one side, he was sympathizing with Nazis, and on the other, he was working with the most notorious Jewish mobster of all time. And so if they want to praise him, don't just sing your praises for someone like Stafford Sands. I would argue that the only reason you love him is precisely why we need to take him off of the $10 bill, because you will see him every day.
One quick question here, really quickly. Ask Chris why he hasn't moved back to Africa like Marcus Garvey and like he recommended back in the day. Wow. Okay.
Because our ancestors built this country, and people of African descent have every right to do that. And for those that don't know, I also have indigenous American roots. So if I want to go back to Africa or stay in the Americas, my bloodline would tell me I have the right to do so.
And you love this country, you want to make it
love
a
the
better
country.
place,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
So you mentioned Cuba. We got to go, but I think we need to do a show on that.
Certainly.
Because with what Trump is doing with Cuba and what he's saying he wants to happen, the opening of Cuba, which we've been talking about for decades, it seems like it could happen very soon. What impact will that have on the Bahamas? We'll talk about that at some point. We'll look back at the history. Thank you so much.
We need to do a part 2, man.
Yeah, on this one too. Okay.
Come and see me at Clifton Heritage National Park. I'm very open and friendly. So all you all who may want to have a discussion or even criticize, you're welcome to come. But unfortunately, you got to pay to see me. You got to take the heritage tour, and I'll be happy to stand up with you and row with you for hours over any aspect of Bahamian history.
I'd love to see that. Christopher Davis, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Again, Clifton Heritage Authority. We're back on Monday with more Morning Blend and Morning Blend Business. Stay tuned for On the Clock with Aaron Green. Have a safe weekend, everybody. See you in February.
Planning for retirement can be overwhelming, but with CFAL, it doesn't have to be. We offer tailor-made individual, group, and pension solutions that take the guesswork out of retirement planning. Whether it's for you or your company, don't leave your future to chance and let the trusted hands of CFAL's experts guide you toward peace of mind and financial stability. Costs and affordable monthly payments make it easy for you to build wealth so you can live well. Visit us at cfal.com to start on your path toward financial freedom. CFAL, growing wealth for future generations.
Love is in the air.
Is your love story one for the ages?
You try to rest, but go with the best. For all your printing needs, there ain't no one better, no. For posters and banners, magazines and flyers, for window decals, greeting cards and newsletters. No job too big and there's no job too small. You name it, we can print it. Just give us a call. Let Print Masters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Put more money back in your pocket with the Fidelity Debt Consolidation Loan. Why pay more when you can pay less? Reduce your monthly debt payments down to one low, easy payment. Apply for a Fidelity Debt Consolidation Loan today. Call 356-7764.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
Get ready for the biggest football game of the year, Super Bowl 60. We have the best seat in the house for you. Join Star 106.5 All-Star Team live at Anthony's on Paradise Island on Super Bowl Sunday, February 8th from 2 to 6 p.m. Enjoy giant screens, delicious fun food, ice-cold Calig Bear specials, prizes and surprises non-stop. It's the place to be for Super Bowl Sunday. Anthony's on Paradise Island.